Hello, this is Warren Redlick. Live stream today, we're going to talk about Tesla news. You can see all this here. Tesla news, SpaceX news, Boring Company news. The main topic today is be like Elon. We're going to talk about how we can be more like Elon. I see Elon as a role model. I'm very excited about what Elon is doing. So we're going to talk about that. And at the end, as usual, we're going to have a Q&A. And hopefully I can get this outline marker thing right. And if you're watching this video and you want to see where we are in the discussion, following this marker should tell you where we are if you want to skip ahead to a certain topic. The main topic is going to be like Elon, so you're going to want to go there if that's what you want to see. So for starters, I'd like to thank the Vasa law firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. There's a link in the description below to Patreon. If you'd like to support this channel, I would really appreciate it. I'd also like to mention the t-shirts. The Elon Be Less Wrong shirt is the most popular shirt on the website. elonbits.com is the website. And there's a link to elonbits.com in the description below. And I was going to show off my book. I wrote a book years ago, 2015 or 13 or something like that. I published a book called Fair DUI. There's a link to that in the description below as well. If you like the way I think and you want to understand more about how I think, then checking out my Fair DUI book might be something interesting for you. It's about drunk driving, the law, primarily in the United States, but I think it's interesting to people all over. So, that is the welcome I had in mind. Let's move on. And there's a chat window. I guess another detail. Let me go back to that. Oh my God. There's a chat window on this video. If you'd like to say something in the chat, I don't watch the chat closely for most of the video until the Q&A, but I do notice super chats and super stickers, or I'm more likely to notice them. It's probably better to hold your comments until the Q&A, but if you have something you're excited about and you want me to address it, if I see a super chat, I'm much more likely to see it. I do check the chat occasionally to look for things, but I typically don't see it. It's just the way my setup is. It's off to the side and it's hard for me to see. So let's move on to topic number 1, Tesla news. A lot of great stuff with Tesla this week. We're seeing a lot of progress in a lot of ways. The biggest bit of progress that we're seeing is full self-driving. So Elon mentioned, this was slightly more than a week ago, Elon mentioned that I think a new update did roll out. FSD beta version 8.2 did roll out. There are people posting FSD beta videos using that particular version. It's looking good. It's making progress. But FSD beta version 8.3 is coming soon. My guess is in a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. And it has a lot of improvements. Elon is saying it's going to be a lot better. That's coming really soon, and that's going to significantly advance FSD. I think what's coming sometime in a month or two is going to be FSD beta version 9, which is going to be the full 4D update that's really going to change things more radically. Whole Mars Catalog, which I believe is Omar Kazi, who I interviewed on this channel before, did a video using version 8.2. He said, so if you check out his Twitter, he tweets a lot, but if you check out his videos on Twitter, he has a lot of FSD drives with no interventions doing complex drives. And it was interesting at the bottom, he tweeted this particular video, and Elon said, what has become absolutely clear is that the plethora of self-driving corner cases can only be solved with real-world optical intelligence. This is how humans designed the road system to work. Once you have that in silicon form, everything else is just icing on the cake. What Elon's talking about here is, there was a tweet earlier, which I didn't find, where he said that FSD is going to drop radar. It's going to be all visual. A Tesla vehicle has 8 cameras on it. It has radar, it has sonar. Elon appears to believe that FSD will function just fine with cameras only. If you follow Andrej Karpathy, and if you've seen Andrej Karpathy's talks, or if you see James Doma being interviewed on Hey Dave, on Professor Dave Lee's channel, they're using the cameras for what James Doma called, and maybe Andrej Karpathy called, pseudo-LiDAR. A lot of people in the self-driving space think that LiDAR is necessary to determine precisely where various objects are. Karpathy has spoken about, and Doma confirmed that, or he at least agrees, that the way they're using the cameras allows them to effectively emulate LiDAR, and you don't need LiDAR. LiDAR is very expensive. It makes it much more expensive to create a self-driving vehicle. So it appears that my understanding was that the radar was an additional bit of information that helped self-driving work. I thought in particular it might be able to bounce radar signals under the car in front of you and give you some information of what's ahead of that car in front of you. But apparently, my guess is that they have internal metrics. This is one of my big questions for Elon. I did a video last week or the week before, questions for Elon. One of my big questions is, how do they measure how well self-driving FSD is working? And I think what they figured out from their metrics was if they turned the radar off, it didn't change how effective FSD was, how good it was. So there's no point in running the radar. It saves energy. In future vehicles that you build, if you leave the radar out, then you're saving fewer parts, fewer processes, you're using less energy. I wouldn't be surprised if they leave sonar out as well. There's sonar all around the car that I think helps detect things close to the car. It maybe they decide they don't need that either. That the 8-camera system combined with the FSD chip and the software creates a 3D picture of the world that is better than you and I can really perceive. And we drive cars without radar and without sonar. If it is a better visual picture of the world than we do, then it should be able to drive. So, and by the way, thank you to Mark Plott and Mike Smith and Jim Whitehead. If he shows up, the moderators really help with the chat, and I really appreciate their support. And in fact, they keep coming back. Hi, Mark Potocnik as well. I see a lot of regulars here. Thank you for coming. The other tweet was, there's this button. Everybody in the Tesla Twitter community is excited about the button. I believe when version 8.3 comes out, that people will be able to request an upgrade to the FSD beta with a button on it that'll appear in their car. It's probably limited to a certain number of people. FSD beta, the previous version of FSD beta, was limited to 1,000 drivers. It has now been expanded to 2,000 drivers. And at the bottom, you can see that Elon said, that they've revoked beta where drivers did not pay sufficient attention. There was somebody tweeted to him, apparently the internal camera in the car is watching whether FSD beta drivers are paying attention, and if you don't pay attention, you lose FSD beta. So if you get FSD beta, make sure you pay attention. This rollout, expanding it from 1,000 to 2,000, let me get rid of this on the screen. This rollout expanding it from 1,000 users to 2,000 users and then to 10,000 users with beta version 8.3 means that they're going to be collecting a lot more data on the latest version of the software. So I think all that's great. A lot of great news there. One other thing, this was tweeted today by Tesla. Hopefully I have the sound off. This is a Tesla Semi on a racetrack. They just tweeted this today. I thought it was really cool, so I figured I'd share it. Very exciting to see the Semi driving fast around a big loop. Not a lot more than that. I think there's a lot of hope. If you've been following Tesla Semi, there is some indication that I believe they started and posted jobs for semi manufacturing. So semi manufacturing is coming. That's going to be really cool. Okay, so let's move on. I think we're done with Tesla news. I can't think of any other Tesla news. I guess I'll talk briefly about the stock. I see a couple comments in the chat, so I'll just briefly talk about Tesla stock. Stocks go up, stocks go down, stocks go round and round and round. I am a long-term investor. I do not worry about short-term share prices. If you're looking for somebody to talk about what the stock's going to do tomorrow or next week or in the next few weeks, I'll just tell you it's going to go up and down. I don't have short-term price targets. I don't really use the term price target at all. I'm much more interested in long-term modeling. Where do I think the company is going in the long run? Everything I see, things are good. I should mention, I guess, I've had a couple of apparently insider sources. You never know how reliable your sources are when they're anonymous, but I've had a couple of sources. I'm still getting information that Tesla's battery cell production in Fremont is going well. They're making progress. Things are getting better. A source recently told me that they had achieved 5,000 good cells in one day. That didn't sound like a lot to me. That's like, I don't know, 5 cars. So maybe 6 or 7 cars. It's not a lot. It's, one semi. But the question is, are they going to be able to scale that up? Are they going to be able to improve yields? Regardless, the person who sent that to me felt it was an indication of good progress. I'm hearing other news that progress is going well with Tesla's cell production. I'm hearing reports that they're getting ready to start building the cell lines in Texas and Berlin. A lot of great stuff going on in Texas and Berlin, so a lot of good news. But in terms of short term, what's the stock going to do tomorrow, or what's the stock going to do in the next week? It's going to go up, it's going to go down. Which way it's going to go when? I have no idea. I think anybody who tells you they know what the stock's going to do in the short term is lying to you and probably lying to themselves as well. I don't think we can know that. Short-term stock movements are animal spirits, whatever you want to call it. Long-term stock price should be based on how the company does. I will say I've noticed a tremendous amount of negative Tesla news that seems completely off base. Call it FUD, call it Tesla Q. Just an astonishing, if you search for Tesla in Google News, it's like all the news seems to be bad. And they come up with crazy news stories like, oh, the Mustang Mach-E is eating into Tesla's market share. And if you read it closely, you realize Tesla's sales went up. So that's not really eating into Tesla's market share. A lot of stories like that. So, and thank you, Infinite Vacation, for your nice comment. All right, let's move on. SpaceX news. So just this morning, we're going to do this first. Hopefully I got the sound off. A Starlink launch happened. This is Starlink launch. Is it moving? There we go. This is the 9th flight for this particular booster. I have this at 2x speed, so it didn't really launch this fast. But this is yet another launch of a Starlink operation. Starlink. It's a 60 Starlink satellites being launched by SpaceX from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Launch went well, landing went well, everything went well, deploy went well. Where are we? Oh, we're really close to max Q. This is max Q, and then this is the moment of maximum dynamic pressure. And then I'm gonna skip it. I'm not gonna show this whole video just because it takes too long. I tried to make it fast and it went faster than it doesn't go fast enough. But the next thing was deploy. The Starlink satellites successfully deployed, and you can see that here. You can see, I love this shot where you can see the edge of the Earth lighting up, where it's getting a little bit of sunlight on the far edge of the Earth. And then that's going to fade, and then you're going to see the satellites deploy. There was some kind of glitch in the video when I was recording this right here. But you'll see the satellites deploy, they launch off. So this is 60 more satellites added to the Starlink network. They will take a few days or a few weeks to deploy to the point where they will be useful to the network. The network is expanding. I should have included, there's this great website that tracks where all the Starlink satellites are and where they're and where they're the cone that they cast, where the circle, what they reach, shows up on Earth. It was really cool. Steve Jurvetson tweeted it, an image from it, and somebody pointed me to where the website is. Really cool stuff. So, there's Starship news. Let's see what I got here. This I thought was a really profound tweet. This is I don't know if you guys can read this. It's kind of small. Pranay Pradhole, who tweets to Elon a lot, and Elon seems to respond to, talked about the success of Falcon 9, how successful it's been in turnaround time, that they land a rocket and launch it again, and that's getting better. And he talks about the point when SpaceX will have transitioned to Starship, and we might have an hour of turnaround time. That might be a little optimistic, but I just love what Elon said here. If the 2021 manifest is met, SpaceX will do roughly 3/4 of the total Earth payload to orbit with Falcon 9. And then he says this is like mind-blowing to me. A single Starship is designed to do in a day what all rockets on Earth currently do in a year. One Starship will launch 150 tons into low Earth orbit. It will come back and land and launch again and launch 3, 4, 10 times a day. I don't know how many times a day. Multiple times a day, go up, come back down, launch some more. And then he says, even so, 1,000 Starships will take 20 years to build a self-sustaining city on Mars. So, well, there you have it. It sounds like Elon is hoping to have a self-sustaining million-person colony on Mars somewhere around let's see, we're at 2021 now, so it looks like we're talking before 2050. He's hoping to have 1 million people on Mars. So that's pretty cool. But I just love that, the capacity of Starship is vastly underrated. I will put it another way. Before Falcon 9, before SpaceX, the cost to launch a kilogram to orbit was in the ballpark of $10,000. $10,000 a kilogram to launch something into low Earth orbit. With Falcon 9, they've gotten the cost down to $2,000 a kilogram, maybe $1,000 a kilogram internal cost for SpaceX to launch a kilogram into low Earth orbit. Starship is going to lower that, not to $100 a kilogram, but to $10 a kilogram, or close to $10 a kilogram. That is how substantial, that is how significant Starship is. It is a radical step change in the cost of launching things to low Earth orbit. Huge advantage. Now, a couple other interesting details. If you've been watching the test launches, they've been having trouble landing the rockets well. The last one did land, but maybe it wasn't the best landing. So Elon has talked before about when Super Heavy comes down, they're going to catch it with a launch tower. And there's somebody who does animations that's trying to figure out how exactly they would catch it with a launch tower. And there's some question about whether they can get the landing down. And Elon is saying they might have Starship land in a big net or bouncy castle, which lacks dignity, but it would work. So it's not clear how serious he is about that. I think they're really going to try to stick to propulsive landings. I'm not sure how a big net or bouncy castle would really work. That's an interesting idea. But we'll see what happens. I thought that was interesting stuff. And ERC, I think they make videos. So that's a good Twitter user to watch. They talked about, if you look at some Starship renders, you see this window section, which SpaceX also uses in its Starship images. And they talk about, well, how are you going to put windows on Starship? That seems like it's unreasonable. Are you planning on using transparent metal? And Elon specifically said they might use transparent aluminum, ALON, which sounds like something from Star Trek fiction, but apparently it's actually real. And somebody said something about Starship in the chat. Where was that Starship comment? Possible Starship launch on Tuesday. Yes, I believe Starship SN11 is on the pad. I believe it's on the pad and ready to launch, or close to ready to launch. They're probably going to do a static fire. Did they do? I don't remember if they did a static fire already. I don't think they did. So I think that's coming. So a lot of good news there. Okay, let's move on. So we've done SpaceX. I don't think I have any other SpaceX news, but if you think of something, bring it up in the chat later in the Q&A, and we'll talk about it then. So let's move on to, somebody just asked about the Boring Company, so let's talk about the Boring Company. A little bit of news about the Boring Company. First of all, there's been talk about projects. Las Vegas has 1 mile of tunnel. They're talking about expanding it to 25 miles of tunnel. There seems to be progress in Ontario County, California, Rancho Cucamonga, a tunnel from the airport to a light rail or train line. That's coming soon. I believe that's moving ahead, or really close to moving ahead. Elon has been talking, just met about a week ago with mayors of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, about proposed projects. Miami, I know they're talking about the Brickell. There's a bridge called the Brickell Bridge. I live an hour north of this, for about roughly an hour from both Fort Lauderdale and Miami, depending on traffic, and maybe a little farther from Miami. But I've been across the Brickell Bridge. Apparently it's old and needs to be replaced. There's been a plan for a while to replace it with tunnels. It was going to cost $1 billion. Elon told the Miami mayor, I can do that for $30 million. The Miami mayor's on board with that idea. Elon met with the Miami mayor and the Fort Lauderdale mayor. There's been talk about a tunnel in Fort Lauderdale for trains, which would be larger diameter tunnels and outside the scope of what Boring Company usually does. But it may be that Elon and Boring Company think they can do that as well. So there may be Boring Company tunnel projects in Fort Lauderdale and Miami coming soon. Soon is probably a stretch, but coming. So somebody asked about, I'm going to be careful here because for legal reasons, I think I need to be careful. I have talked in the past about investing in the Boring Company, Neuralink, and SpaceX. There is no fund yet. I am looking at the possibility of it, but I believe it's not appropriate for me to talk about it in public on a YouTube video. I do have a email list. There's a link in the description below to an email list where I basically send emails out about investing, and particular topics of investing are Boring Company, SpaceX, and Neuralink. Lately, especially the Boring Company. So just a little bit of background to that. This is Crunchbase, which is probably hard to see, but if you Google Boring Company Crunchbase, you should be able to find this. And what you'll see is that there was a quote funding round in 2018, which I think was just Elon. There's no specific investors in that funding round, so I think that was just Elon dumping $113 million into the startup. And then there was an actual funding round in 2019 where they pumped $120 million in. And you can see at the bottom, VY Capital, Craft Ventures, 8VC, Future Ventures, which is Steve Jurvetson's fund, Giga Fund, which is a PayPal Mafia fund. The founders, I think the people who run Giga Fund are former PayPal people, which is where Elon was working. That's where Elon got his first big payday was PayPal, when PayPal got sold. So the Boring Company total funding amount was $233 million. There are estimates that Boring Company is valued at $1 billion or more. I'm not sure what it's actually valued at. And just really quick, Neuralink also has a Crunchbase page. One investor, it's Elon. Elon is the only, as far as I know, Elon is the only investor in Neuralink. It's his. He apparently dumped $150 million into that. I don't know how reliable these numbers are, but these are both small startups, and I'm particularly interested in Boring Company and Neuralink, and I am hopeful that I'm going to find a way to invest in them, and I'm hopeful I will find a way to help other people invest in them. But I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about it. I don't think it's legally wise for me to talk about the specifics in this video, other than to say it's something I'm working on, and there's an email list you can join. A lot of people have joined, and it's probably more appropriate for me to share that information there. So, let's see. And I would just also say I've been doing a lot of reading and research about the concept of venture capital, about how it works. I just read a book that I didn't think was that helpful. I'm taking a class that's run by the guy who wrote the book, so I'm not sure how helpful that's going to be, but I'm taking a class. I've watched a lot of videos. I've read a lot. I've learned a lot. I think there's a certain way that venture capital, let's talk about this. I'm just going to talk about this really quick. There's a certain way that venture capital is usually done, which is you have some team that runs a venture capital fund or funds, and there's partners and there's staff, and they investigate and research 100 or more startup companies, looking for companies that are good investments. And then they get investors to put money in the fund. And when they find a good company to invest in, then they make a deal. And they might go to their investors and say, hey, you need to put more money in now. There's this whole complicated process. And you're basically, as an investor, you're paying high fees for those partners and their team, because they're good at what they do, to help choose what investments to do. And that's sort of like a general venture capital fund. There's a different type of approach called a special purpose vehicle, which is broader than just venture capital. It's not only for venture capital. But I think special purpose vehicles that are very limited in focus could be a lot more interesting. And I've been looking at different ways of doing that. But I can't say more here. And I haven't said a lot of detail on the email list yet, but there's an email coming soon. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. Please sign up for the email list. And hopefully you'll find that information useful. But I hope you can forgive me that I don't feel comfortable talking about it from a legal... I do feel comfortable talking about it, but from a legal perspective, it's not wise for me to talk about it here, even though I think that's dumb. So, I should say, there was one brief bit of boring news. There was some indication that some Boring Company equipment was spotted at the Giga Austin Tesla factory site. Not clear why. There's some indication that Elon's thinking about doing some tunnels underneath the factory. I don't know how much of that is fluff and how much of that is real. I know that I think it's very likely that a lot of Elon's companies will be moving all or in part to Austin, Texas. Elon was on Joe Rogan saying that Austin is going to be a huge boom town. There was a job ad for Neuralink, I think, for construction management for Austin, Texas. So they're getting ready to build something in Austin, Texas for Neuralink. Boring Company is pretty clearly building something in Austin, Texas. Tesla is obviously building stuff in Austin, Texas, and SpaceX could conceivably move to Austin, Texas. It's very possible they're just going to leave California entirely, or they'll continue having some operations in California just because there's talented people who want to stay there. We'll see. I think Elon is tired of California. I'll say that. So moving on, let's talk about the main topic. Let's see. So the main topic, what I'm excited about, okay. I feel like So I'm a total Elon nut, right? I'm wearing the Elon Be Less Wrong t-shirt. Check the links below. Check elonbits.com to check out the t-shirts. People accuse me of being an Elon fanboy, and I'm like, so what? Who isn't an Elon? It's like, how can you like Michael Jordan? Well, because he's a really good basketball player. How can you like Elon Musk? Well, he's just like a really amazing investor, entrepreneur, an engineer, etc. If you ask me personally, I'm not ashamed to say this. I think Elon Musk might be the most significant human ever on Earth. Okay, that's how crazy I am about this. He is advancing technology to benefit humanity in many ways, and I think it's amazing. So I don't expect, when I say be like Elon, I'm not saying all of us should all of a sudden invest hundreds of millions of dollars and run 4 companies. I don't think we can do that. What I'm suggesting is to take a look at what Elon did after PayPal got sold. And he got handed $100 and some million, 180, I forget the number, I think it was $180 million. You take a look at what Elon did with that. There's a lot of people, and I mentioned this, I have a previous video, I put a link to it in the description below about Teslainaires. There's a lot of people who all of a sudden have become significantly wealthy because of Tesla's stock going up, myself included. There's a lot of people who have a lot more than I do, but I've become a lot wealthier than I was. My retirement is a lot more secure than it was before. And you'll see stories about people like Jason DeBolt is the biggest example. All of a sudden he has, $10 or $12 million in Tesla stock and he retires from work. It's like, okay, so you're going to retire. What are you going to do now? And I think Elon is an example for all of us that when he was confronted with a big pile of cash and a lot of free time, he didn't just buy a yacht and sit on the back of it. He went out and he looked and he said, well, how can I make the world a better place? Now, I'm not saying that any of us is going to start up an electric vehicle company or a rocket company or do anything as big and substantial as what Elon is doing. I don't think we're all going to invent brain implants and tunnel machine companies, but I think we can all look around. And I think some of this is as individuals and some of this is maybe in groups. We can look around and we can ask ourselves, what do I see around me, either right in my immediate neighborhood, in my city or town, in my state, in my region, in my country? Probably not globally for most of us. Most of us are probably not, I don't see myself as capable of making global change. But if you can make local change, if you can make some kind of significant change in the world, that's a pretty good thing. That's a pretty meaningful way to live your life. If you see an opportunity, and I think a lot of people volunteer. Okay, that's great. I think maybe the second point of this is not just to see something you can make better, but can you see something that you can make better that can scale? Right? If you're doing something that just helps like a few people in your hometown, that's good. Certainly better than nothing. But can you do something when Elon saw we can make electric vehicles, but not just I can make an electric vehicle. I can make a roadster that I can sell to rich people. I can sell a small volume. It was like, okay, I can make a roadster that I can sell to rich people. And then I can figure out how to make a bigger vehicle. It costs less to sell to more people. Then I can, keep going down and figuring out how to scale that idea to something much bigger that reaches a lot more people and makes a lot more of the world a lot better place. So, I think that's a key detail is we got to look around the world and I guess I would say to apply first principles. We see that something could be better and we're not sure exactly what it could be better, then you have to try to apply this first principles approach, which is hard, to try to figure out, well, how could I do that a lot better than it's done now? And I'm not saying I'm good at that. I'm just saying that's something we should aspire to. We should try to be like Elon. We're not necessarily going to succeed in being like Elon, but we should try. So people who follow this channel a lot know I'm working on this doghouse project. My dog gets bothered by thunder and fireworks, and I'm trying to make a quiet dog home for her, and I've stalled on it because I've been working on investing in the Boring Company. I'm really close. I got to finish that project, and I'm traveling next week. By the way, there's no live stream next Sunday. I'm busy next week. I will not be available on Sunday because I'll be traveling. I'll be back Sunday night, but not in time to do this live stream. So, the idea was, can I build something that will provide a quiet place for my dog inside the house that she'll be comfortable? And then it's like, well, wait a minute. I could do that and then I could do something that I could scale. Maybe I could make 100 of them a year and sell them on Amazon. Maybe I could sell 1,000 of them a year on Amazon. And not just to make money. Making money's good. I'm not saying it's wrong. Elon's making money. He's become the wealthiest man in the world pursuing this angle. I'm just saying maybe I could make some money and help, do a little bit better for myself. But also, maybe I can help 1,000 dog owners a year or 10,000 dog owners a year make their dogs more comfortable when there's thunder or fireworks. And I think a lot of dog owners would pay $100 or $200 for something that really worked. So that's something I'm pursuing. I actually have a bigger idea that is probably sometimes it's something that's out of your grasp. Like, this is probably too big for me. And one of the things of being like Elon is team building, which I don't think I'm very good at, but I want to try to get better at it. Is, he decided to do a rocket company. Well, he went out and found people who really knew a lot about rockets and got them to work with him. And he decided to do an electric vehicle company, and he joined a company that was an upstart company, Tesla, when it was just very, very beginning. And then he realized, wait a minute, we don't have what we need. And he went out and found other people to join the team. He found people who knew more than he did in certain subjects. At least at the beginning, he usually learns enough that he knows as much as they do by the end. But he found people to work together with to build something bigger than he could build by himself. So there's a particular topic that I'm stoked about that so far Tesla isn't pursuing that I think could be pursued. And I kind of have in the back of my head, this is something I'm going to try in a year or so. Assuming Tesla goes up some more and now all of a sudden I have a lot more money. If Tesla goes to, let's say, 2,000 a share, well, then I'm going to have triple what I have now, and I already have a lot, right, in terms of value. Bitcoin, meanwhile, is going up. If my Bitcoin goes up, I suppose I have a lot more there too, but I have a lot more Tesla than I have Bitcoin in dollar value. But try to get other Teslaonaires together and say, hey, let's start something. And for me particularly, I think the one big area that stands out to me, and when I finish what I'm saying, I want to hear what you think are other areas that we could pursue. Housing. The world of housing is too expensive. It takes too long to build houses. They're not designed in an efficient manner. They're not inherently built for solar power. They're not inherently built for a power wall. They're not inherently built for like an HVAC system that uses heat pumps instead of these big ugly systems we have today. And sort of what other things could we do to make housing not only, more efficient, more environmentally friendly, but, easier to build, less expensive to build? Is there an order of magnitude gain in there somewhere? And things like concrete. For those who know, I'm working on building the cyber cabin. I'm still waiting for one more estimate, then I think I'm ready to go forward. And I have an estimate for the cabin, the steel building that's going to go in. I have an estimate for the concrete that's going to go for the pad. I have an estimate for the guy who's going to prepare the ground for the concrete. I'm working on an estimate for the guys who are going to prepare the land for the guy who's going to prepare the ground for the guy who's going to prepare for the concrete. So I still need to get a plumber in there too. That's to put rough plumbing in, but that's like a relatively small thing. So I'm pretty close on that. So one of the things that struck me when I was doing this process is how it's not that expensive, but getting concrete poured is like a big project. And like just the concrete alone for a 1,000 square foot building is probably going to cost me $5,000 or $6,000. I think it's $6,000 plus just to get the concrete poured. Like, well, number one, concrete, if you don't know, concrete is not very environmentally friendly from a CO2 perspective. I'm not a big CO2 nut, but I know a lot of people who watch this are. If you're worried about CO2, there's probably a better way. Could we find a better way than concrete as the foundation for a building? Could we find a better way to build a building the way we build it now? I know there's this idea of manufacturing the building in a factory and then shipping, major parts out and assembling it on site. Is there a better way? What is a first principles way or a first principles approach to building homes? And maybe we start with apartment homes rather than single family homes. I'm not sure, but I would love to pursue that. I would love to get a few other Teslaonaires together and say, hey, let's each put in $1 million. Right? Or let's, one person puts in 5 million, one person puts in 1 million, a couple other people put in 100,000, but we form a company and we need to find somebody who actually knows something about building houses, some kind of engineer, and get a few people together and say, okay, let's come up with a project we can do where we build a small apartment building, we build a small group of single family homes. There's a lot of ideas out there. I think there's one called Boxable or something like that. There's a lot of ideas out there, but so far I haven't seen one that really got the cost down. It's always like, oh, this looks really cute and this is really neat. And then you look at the price, it's like, well, wait a minute, that costs as much as building a regular house. And really, honestly, the steel building that I'm going to build for my cyber cabin, it's like less than 20. Well, the way I'm building it with a steeper roof so that the solar panels will have a better angle for the sun. I think it's going to cost me less than $20,000 for the building. So, and you know, the guys are going to assemble it in one day. So I don't know, maybe a steel building is the basis for a new way of approaching the housing industry. I'm not sure how we do that. You can look up Quonset huts. That's another interesting approach. Maybe there's a variation on Quonset huts that would make sense. I don't know. But I feel like that's an opportunity for us to pick an industry, pick a sector of life where a lot of resources go in, consumes a lot of energy, consumes a lot of money, takes a lot of time to set up, ends up costing the end consumer a lot more than it seems like it should. So I would love to see if we can do something like that, find a way to, you know, and I think also maybe make it not grid dependent. We design something so that it generates enough solar and maybe put a wind tower on the project. It's just, you know, maybe it's possible to do small scale wind that's efficient enough to contribute so that when the sun's not shining but the wind is blowing, you have a little bit more consistency in your energy production than you have with solar alone or wind alone. You know, put something together. Can we build a project together that makes sense, and then do the first one as a prototype and then say, okay, we learned from the first one. How would we do the second one better? And then how would we do the third one better? And then at a certain point, we're like, okay, we're at version 1.0. Let's build 10 of them. Learn from that and then build 100 of the next generation. Could we create something like that? I think that, you know, and somebody mentions 3D printing. Let me look at the chat here for a second. Oh, thank you for your support. Viksha, thank you for your support so much. Randy Kirk mentions 3D printing. I'm not sure if 3D printing is the answer. I saw something about a 3D printed home in Long Island. Somebody sent that to me, and then it ended up being fairly expensive. You know, it's got to be, there's got to be a reasonable way of doing it. So, you know, like Robert Benson mentions, there's a company that can build all foundation, concrete floors and walls and does it. So is there a better way than concrete? You know, and is there a way that we can, a lot of times it's like individual contractors, you know, home builders do it here, here, and there. Is there a way we can scale this? So we have one company, because there are companies that build to scale, right? There's a couple of big home builders, and for some reason I can't think of the name of them right now, but there's a few big home builders out there that build a lot of homes everywhere. They build them here too. Can't think of that name. You know, could we build an inexpensive version of that where we're able to deliver homes to people for less than $100,000, and they're not luxury homes, right? It's like, you know, we keep it simple, and then you can embellish the house however you want to. We just make it, you know, reasonably straightforward. But, you know, I know a lot of people have ideas for, you could do it this way, do it that way. The big question is, can we make it scale? It's not just if you have an idea for an innovative way to build a house. Prototypes are easy. Manufacturing is hard. Scaling is hard. You know, a lot of people have a lot of ideas about a way something works. You know, it's nice that you have a system. It's nice that you think about 3D printing. Does it scale? Doesn't mean you can build 10 at once. Doesn't mean you can build 100 in a short time. That's the big question that needs. Toll Brothers is the one I was thinking of, Brady. Thank you. Toll Brothers builds homes here in South Florida too. You know, is there a way of doing that scales, that gets the cost down significantly to the home buyer? You know, maybe we do it as a rental thing. I don't know. I just think that there's something there. So that's just a housing idea. So let's turn this around now. Let's move to the Q&A. So we're going to move to the Q&A now. And I'm just going to ask in the chat, you know, if you have comments. Pulte Homes is another big one. Yes, Mark, thank you. Is there an idea that you have for, whether it's in housing, dog homes, whatever, what is something that you think of that you see out in the world that we could make better? Whether it's me, whether it's you, that you could step up and you say, you know what, I'm willing to put up $100,000. Right? Or I can put together 10 people, and together we can get together $1 million, and we're going to go out and find somebody who knows what they're doing, which is really hard, by the way, because you really want the lead investor to be the entrepreneur, right? Because you want, like, that's one of the things. If you're going to be like Elon, Elon is not only the CEO of the companies, he's the biggest shareholder of every company that he's in. So you really want to find someone you want to be someone who's that motivated that you're willing to dive in, all in, and put 50 hours a week, 80 hours a week into this project. And, it's tough on family life, but, are you trying to make the world a better place? Is there something like that you have in mind that could be done? Or do you have any ideas for, and I'm not that much interested in hearing your idea for, we could build houses this way. Can it scale? If you believe this is a way of building housing, can you do a startup that's going to do it, and not only do it, but scale it? All of this is hard. I would love to hear if anybody has ideas about how to do that. And so Alan O'Reilly says, builders would have thought of an easier way. No, that's the whole point, Alan. That's the whole point about being like Elon. Rocket companies, would have thought of an easier way to reuse rockets and make launches cheaper, and they didn't. And it took Elon to come along and do that. The big car companies did not come up with a way to make electric vehicles. Elon did that. The tunneling companies did not come along with, better ways of tunneling. Elon did that. Neuralink, same thing. Move water from flood areas to drought-stricken areas via boring tunnels. There's actually a video on the Boring Revolution channel about that idea. Not for drought-stricken areas, but to move water from upstream to downstream when there's an area that floods in between. Let's see. Micro-logistics. Pete Christopher, what do you mean about micro-logistics? Is that like drones delivering things? What do you mean by that? Tiny home lots, factory-built homes have... factory-built homes have issues. I'm not saying factory-built homes isn't the answer. I'm just not sure it's that much less expensive than existing homes, and that it can scales easily. Look at low-cost Singapore housing complexes. Malcolm, send me a link to my email, wredlick@gmail.com, or direct message me on Twitter, WR4NYGov. WR4NYGov. Let's see. Probably the best way to reach me is to direct message me on Twitter. Solving the housing problem provides an epic improvement to mankind. That's the point. When there's sort of like, you can solve housing for rich countries, but that might not be the solution for poor countries. That's another question. Is there a solution that's not only good for rich countries, but also good for poor countries? And maybe somebody who's watching this from a country that's not as well off, like India or Egypt, somewhere in Latin America, maybe the solution for housing in your country is different than the solution for housing in America. There's a lot of poor people in America, but poor people in America are rich by the standards of India. So it's a tricky thing. I've seen ICF before, Mark, but does it scale? Right? Does it scale? Is it really cheaper? Mark, that's the challenge. Mark Potachnik brings up ICF. I've seen that a few times. People have said that to me a lot. Stewart says, as a civil engineer, designing and building a structure is fairly straightforward, but the foundation depends on local soil and site conditions, hence the variance in local building codes. Right, Stewart. So, Stewart, you are a guy who could be the center of a startup that says, all right, I know how I was taught how to do things. I know how things are done now. Can I go out and find other Tesla investors and pool some money together and say, hey, let's try, I've got this idea, a way of doing something different. Let's try it. Let's just do a prototype. Do the alpha prototype. Just buy a crappy lot somewhere in the middle of nowhere that costs, like I have a lot that cost me $6,000. Buy a lot somewhere that costs nothing. Build something simple, go through the permitting process and try it. And then, maybe you build the second one on the same lot, or, maybe you build, just find a piece of land somewhere to build a few prototypes and see if you can do it. And somebody mentions modular homes. Mentalek mentions modular homes. Modular homes have a stigma. And are they that much less expensive? Do they really add that much value? I'm just picking out housing as an example. What else is there out there that we could really make different? I don't know. Use lead acid batteries and power walls. That's an interesting point. Desalination. Is there a way of doing desalination? That would be a huge, if there was a way. I thought maybe using the Sabatier process to generate methane could also desalinate water. Is that true? Or I'm generating lithium salts from water might be a way of also you could combine the process of taking lithium out of some water areas and maybe also getting other salts out of it at the same time. I thought about that when I did an interview with a guy named Teague Egan, and I thought about that. I watched another interview with him, and I thought about there. maybe that's a way of adding desalination and at the same time generating lithium. Prefab all walls in a building delivered to put on a slab that would get by the mobile home or modular home. Yeah, no, so Robert, it's an idea. This is the thing. Everybody's got an idea. So I hear a lot of ideas all the time. Don't just tell me your ideas. Tell me you got a way to scale that. Tell me you're going to work with somebody to scale that. Get a few people together and let me know, and then I'll promote it, and we'll see if we can get you some more investors. We'll see if we can promote that idea. Carbon capture homes. Yeah, there's Mark Plot says carbon capture homes. I think Bill Gates was talking about a way of doing concrete that captures CO2 into the concrete. There's some effort to green steel. I may be doing an interview soon with somebody in Sweden who's doing green steel. Cheap energy desalination. Yeah, does cheap energy enable desalination? That's a really good point, Jose. Maybe that happens. Stay away from ICF. Make a machine that produces gold. That doesn't really solve human problems. That just creates more gold. In Spain, big tubes near the ocean condensation. Tell me more about that, Pete. Is that something that can scale and make life better for people? Yeah, KB Homes is another one. FEMA trailers minus the formaldehyde. Stay away from steel, 3D. Boring bricks. Yeah, boring bricks could be, maybe boring bricks is a part of the solution. The reality is bricks don't cost that much anyway, though. I'm not sure how much cheaper boring bricks are than regular bricks. And, boring bricks isn't the solution. It's just it may be a part of a solution. Passive house. Carl says, builders build the same way it has been done for many decades. They don't make a living by trying to change the materials, the components, the efficiency of the building. Carl, that's exactly what I see. And thank you for being a moderator as well, Carl. That's exactly what I see, that it's an industry that's waiting for revolutionary change. Rockets were waiting for revolutionary change. Elon found it. Vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles were waiting for revolutionary change. Elon delivered revolutionary change. Boring Company found a way to revolutionize tunneling. Neuralink is finding a way to revolutionize the treatment of brain diseases and brain implants. And I'm not saying you have to have your answer today. I'm saying I'm encouraging you to think about this for yourself. Talk with your friends about this. Go for a walk. Look around the world. You don't have to have the answer in your head right now. It's like, look around the world around you. This is the challenge. I don't think Elon got his check from PayPal and immediately started SpaceX and Tesla. He started thinking about it. SpaceX was like, he had this idea. He went to Russia. He started pursuing it sort of generally, and then he dug in deeper, and he dug in deeper, and he dug in deeper. So like Adam says, I've been experimenting with many ways of building houses that require no heating for 25 years. So Adam, scale it. If you've been experimenting for 25 years, you should have some good answers by now. If you don't have good answers by now, maybe you're going down the wrong path. If you do have good answers, then find investors and scale that. Do more of it. Legacy companies are here for a long time ago. Innovation has not a simple result of time and market nor cash available. Yes. Or straight down and live in it. Well, that's actually not crazy, Scott. Could you make housing out of boring tunnels? Maybe. Would I buy a 3D printer? Thomas asks. I would consider buying a 3D printer. I'm not sure what I'm doing with a 3D printer. Right now, what I see with 3D printers is you can make, this is Fred, I think Fred Jessup sent me this. You can make, you can make little batteries, and this is a Mach 4680 cell from, I think it's Fred Jessup if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it's Fred Jessup and not Fred Hassan, but I'm not sure which one. Thank you for that. Right now, if everything I see with 3D printing is it's for making toys, it's not for serious objects. But that's housing. Don't forget about introducing AI, guys. So yeah, how does AI figure into this? I don't know. I don't know enough about AI to know how to do something useful with it. Vertical underground apartments, condos. So Mark, does that scale? Does the idea of creating homes and bored tunnels, does that scale? I don't know. And is it hard to get fresh air into a boring tunnel? I don't know. Starlink will help to eliminate poverty in the world. I think that's probably true that Starlink will help. I don't know if it's everything, but it'll help. Leonard Brillant says, I have a 640 square foot home on order from China. The cost is $13,500 plus $4,500 delivery fee. Leonard, if you don't mind, message me that on Twitter or email wredlick@gmail.com. I'd like to see more about that. I don't know if that's the answer. So Philip Massey points out there's a company that makes housing out of old shipping containers. So I looked at shipping container housing. The shipping container approach doesn't really make a lot of sense. It sounds good. For those who don't know, there's this idea you take either a used or a new shipping container. They don't cost a lot. I think they're 40 feet long by 8 feet high by 8 feet wide, something like that. And you basically convert them into a home. Well, 40 by 8 is 320 square feet. So if you want a reasonable size home, maybe you're going to go for 640 square feet, which is pretty small. You need 2 of them. If you wanted 1,000 square feet, you really need 3 or 4 of them. It ends up being a lot of work to turn that into a real home. So I don't know how great of a solution that is. And you usually have to pour the concrete pad to put them on anyway. So it's a challenge. Anyway, if anybody has any other questions or other things you want to talk about, put those in the chat too. I really just want to encourage people to think about how you can. Oh, somebody mentions Elon's brother grows gardens in shipping containers. Yeah, the Square Roots project is interesting. I don't know if he scaled. Kimball Musk has this project called Square Roots, this company called Square Roots that grows plants, vegetables in shipping containers. So far, it doesn't seem like that's scaling well. Like I went on the website, well, how do I get one? And it doesn't work that way. He hasn't designed that to scale yet. I don't know if he's going to scale that. Building the fabric of a wall is the easy part. That's a cool battery. Thank you, Abzar. Let's see. Looking back to the comments to see if anybody's got something to talk about here. Will current homes lose value if 3D printing homes becomes the new standard? About to buy a home right by Giga Texas. I don't think current homes are going to lose value. The question is just, can you come up with a way of building reasonable housing? Is there a sacrifice that you have to make the housing better? Maybe you do open floor plans would cost less. Maybe you go with 1 bathroom. And everybody, right now, like my house has 3 bathrooms. Maybe you build simple homes that have 1 bathroom and it's designed for one or 2 people. What can be done there? Maybe it's an apartment building, and maybe there's some. I don't know. I think it seems to me apartment buildings tend to be built very efficiently, but at the same time, they built an apartment complex near me recently. It took them a long time. Why does it take so long? Is it the permitting process that makes it take so long, or is it something else? Brady G, when are you coming up with your new model with Tesla producing 10,000 cars per year with next factories after Austin and Berlin? So I don't think that's correct, Brady. I think you've got the wrong numbers there. I'm working on a new model that uses margins instead of what I've done before with revenue. 10 million cars a year. I wouldn't say that it's a 10 million car a year model. It's a model of Tesla's growth, but I'm trying to incorporate margins because I learned more about the potential margins for Tesla Energy. Not completely, but I learned enough. Mike Smith says, check out Aero Barrier, neat way to seal leaks in a home without using dangerous foam sprays. Interesting. We'd like to see homes built around solar, gain more semi-automated leafy greens to produce. Could you build a home that had, somebody mentioned Kimball Musk's startup Square Roots. Could you design homes that had indoor gardens built in? Some sort of indoor gardening built into the homes. Is that something people would want? Maybe that's, Warren's fantasy. I don't know. I would like that. And ideally something you don't have to spend 10 hours a day maintaining, right? You just spend half an hour a day making sure the plants are okay. That would be good. Would Robo-Taxi cause deflation in real estate prices? People willing to live further away from work because that travel time then becomes productive. I think that cuts both ways, Christopher. I think it could be that people end up moving into cities more because Robo-Taxis are less expensive in cities. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Wood structures, carbon sequestration, that's true. What do I think of Lucid CEO pumping vaporware before production? I think most people who follow my channel know what I think of Lucid and Lucid CEO. Thermal solar delta electric production scales better than photovoltaic. I don't know what that means, Christopher. We have managed to get houses that don't overheat and need heating net carbon neutral over a year with low embodied CO2. But can you scale it, Adam? You can only build apartments and motels. We built many apartment and motel in a plant and shipped completely done. Interesting. Classic Roman villa was built around an open garden area that could have a hot tub, etc. That would be nice. Yeah. Doesn't Zoom already shift property prices? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, I see what you mean. That because we're already zooming a lot affects. I mean, we're definitely seeing radical changes in the real estate market. But what do I think about the Hindenburg report on the fraud at Lordstown? I have not looked at that. I've never really followed Lordstown, so I know there's a Hindenburg report about Lordstown, but I didn't pay attention to it. Dave Elliott, Warren, thoughts on Dave Lee's DOMA interview regarding metrics for measuring how well FSD is doing? I did not see the complete interview. I think it was 3 parts. Dave, if you would message me on Twitter or wredlick@gmail.com, WR4NYGov on Twitter, direct message me or email me a link to which interview where he talked about metrics, because I did not see that. No one mentioned that to me before. People mentioned that they did the interview, but I didn't realize they talked about metrics. If Boston Dynamics can make robots that build houses. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you came up with robots that build houses. You know, there's a lot of robots used in automotive construction. Is there a way we could use robots to build homes? That's a good question. Sugar Shane, thank you for your support. Check out aquaponics for cyber cabin if you haven't already. Perfect for Florida. Is aquaponics, is that like you have a pond on your property and you grow stuff in the pond, or is it something inside the home? I mean, I'll look it up, but I'm not sure what you mean. Any thoughts on geothermal and solar neighborhood developments? I have not seen whether... I think geothermal ends up being more expensive than you... My goodness, why does she call during my live streams? Hello. Hey, this is my daughter. In the middle of my live stream again. She should know I live stream Sundays at 1. What's up? You don't need something?
Well, I don't need a computer, but you seem busy. So.
All right, say goodbye.
Bye.
You'd think she'd know I live streams every Sunday at 1 o'clock. You'd think she watches my channel sometimes. So, price target for Tesla 2050. I don't do price targets. I don't go out to 2050. Greenhouse in the snow. Yeah, greenhouses are cool. Tony Betancourt, there is dimensioning returns on Elon's value as CEO as the company matures. As Elon steps down to board member in 2 years, how much value can he provide? Let me just talk about something else related to that. Tony, this is not exactly what Tony was talking about, but I want to mention this. Tony Betancourt. So I've been having this conversation with people a lot, and this is like off topic. I'm going off topic here. So you sparked something in me, Tony. It's Tony's fault. No. So a lot of people have talked about Starlink doing an IPO, and I think Starlink is likely to IPO maybe 3-4 years from now. I think that my theory is that once Starlink is up and orbiting and successful and has solved most of the engineering challenges that are involved in getting a working satellite network, Elon is going to decide he doesn't need to run it anymore. He doesn't need to be actively involved in its management anymore because it's up and it's working and it's not going to require a whole lot of new innovation. You know, there might be some need for innovation. He'll play a little bit of a part in it, but he won't need to be so hands-on with Starlink anymore. So I could see Starlink, you know, once it's up and operating and making money, Elon says, okay, spin that off. Anybody who's a SpaceX shareholder is going to get shares in the IPO, you know, as part of the IPO process. Those of us who are excited about will buy into the IPO depending on what the valuation is. I should mention, I believe that Starlink, if you haven't seen my video before, I should mention this really quick. So I did a video, or like a 4-minute video, where I talked about different things, and I mentioned how Starlink could serve 100 million people at $1,000 a year, and that was $100 billion in revenue, and it's only going to cost them like $2 billion a year to maintain the satellites in orbit. So you figure it's a $10 billion annual cost, and it's got $100 billion in revenue. That's $90 billion in profit a year. Cut it down to 50, give it a price earnings ratio of 30, and you got a $1.5 trillion market cap. So right after I made that video, like within 24 hours, there was a news story. I was figuring the market for Starlink might be about 100 million people. So there was a news story that somebody did a survey and estimated that the market for Starlink in the United States alone was 65 million people. So that really pushes the market for Starlink up to maybe 300 million people or 500 million people, and the market cap could be 5 trillion. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, I could see Elon saying, all right, it's time to spin off Starlink, and it becomes released, and somebody from SpaceX becomes the CEO of Starlink, and Starlink just becomes a money printing machine. It just churns out dividends to the shareholders. So here's a more radical idea. I don't know if you're ready for this. Suppose Tesla gets the Robo-Taxi network working. And it's working great, and they've solved the engineering problem, the programming engineering problem of getting the AI working so that full self-driving is better than human. And they've solved all the optimization problems of basically making a Robo-Taxi network that works well, and it's working in the United States, and it's working in China, it's working in a few other countries, and it's expanding. And it no longer needs Elon's engineering wisdom and talent to improve. It's already significantly better than human. It's already making the world a better place, and it doesn't need his talents anymore. I could see Tesla spinning off the Robo-Taxi network in an IPO. That would be a massive, massive IPO. And now Elon has got checks coming in from his dividends from Starlink, and I'm talking like 4 or 5 years from now, Robo-Taxi network spins off in an IPO. So now Elon's got checks flying in from Starlink because right now he owns 50% of SpaceX, but after the IPO, he gets a pile of cash from people buying his shares, and he gets another, he still owns 25% of Starlink, and he's getting ridiculous dividends flying in from the operation of Starlink. Now he's getting ridiculous dividends from Robo-Taxi network, and he uses all these dividends to fund the Mars colony and to fund Neuralink's growth. I think that I see those two IPOs as coming in the next 5 years. Tell me if I'm crazy. What do you guys think could that IPO? Not SpaceX. He's not going to spin off SpaceX. I want to be clear. He's going to spin off Starlink. I don't think SpaceX will ever IPO until there's a 1 million person colony on Mars somewhere between 2040 and 2050. He has a mission in mind. He wants to. That probably his primary goal in life is to establish a working human colony on Mars. And I think that he does not want being publicly traded and the pressures of being a publicly traded company to interfere with SpaceX accomplishing that mission. It's not clear to me that the Mars colony is a profitable mission. It's just something Elon's ready to throw $1 trillion into out of his own pocket. So I see that coming. I see the Boring Company doing an IPO once it's up. The Boring Company doesn't present the same level of engineering challenges that rockets do, or brain implants do, or self-driving does, or manufacturing vehicles does. There's probably going to be a machine that builds the Boring machine coming, and that's probably going to have some significant engineering challenges. But at some point, Boring Company's going to be able to be spun off too, and Neuralink eventually. So, it's sort of like where is Elon left? Let's see. Robo-Taxi would make a huge unicorn IPO. Yes, exactly. No, Robo-Taxi would spin off at like a $2 trillion valuation. They did talk about IPOing Starlink, but Elon had when Shotwell talked about it, Elon said not yet. But I think it's definitely he wants to make sure it's working and profitable before he spins it off as an IPO. C. Glenn, colony on Mars is so insane. Does Elon really want that? Yes. Yes, he does. He's been saying that again and again and again. He wants us to become a multiplanetary species. Electric concrete? SpaceX Airlines IPO. Yeah, I suppose if Starship was working as a the Starship Earth to Earth idea that you would fly from Los Angeles to Shanghai in 30 minutes. If they built a network of starships traveling point to point on Earth, maybe that would spin off as an IPO. See, Dave Elliott, Doma interviewed James spoke how problems programmed countermeasures with solving root problems. Dave, could you message me which specific? Because I think there was a 3-part interview. Could you message me specifically which video it was? I don't want to watch all 3 of them. I don't have a lot of time. I'm busy. I'm working on stuff. Elon needs to get into genomics so he can live longer. I believe Elon is somewhat interested in genomics. Simple Invest, I do think it's possible that Elon could do a startup genomics company. And I think it's not just genomics, it's proteomics, proteins. You think GM will catch up to Tesla? No. I think the entire I coined a new term, Tesla apocalypse. I think the entire internal combustion industry is going to collapse, and then it's going to be boosted by their governments and collapse again. I don't think they can catch up. They're dead. They're walking zombies. Warren, if Robo-Taxis spin off, then what happens to Tesla shareholders? How will they be fairly compensated? So people struggle with this concept. I don't know why people don't get this. I owned stock in 3Com when Palm spun off. The early smartphones, before these beautiful smartphones, there were early smartphones. There was something called the Palm Treo and Palm Pilot. So 3Com spun Palm off in an IPO, and I just got shares in the new company. If you own a company and it spins off a subsidiary in a separate IPO, the existing shareholders get shares in the new company. That's just the way it works. They don't just give it away. The shareholders own that company and they get compensated with shares in the new company. And it was very favorable. So no, Tesla shareholders do not get hurt because of a Robo-Taxi IPO. Tesla shareholders get stock in the Robo-Taxi company that is spun off. I'm sorry that people don't understand how IPOs work when a company spins off a subsidiary. That's how it works. It's not something to worry about. If you're a Tesla shareholder, you get shares in the Robo-Taxi IPO, you'll be fine. Jim Whitehead, great comment. To attract the first settlers, should Mars start as a luxury resort for the very rich and scientists and a vacation spot, and then as costs come down for most people? I don't think Mars will ever be a luxury resort. It is a 2-year journey. I think the round trip would be something like 30 months. That's a heck of a luxury trip. I mean, I guess people who go to Everest, it might be something that Everest type people would want to do, but it's a heck of a long trip. And it's a heck of a hard trip, and there's a high risk of death. I don't think it's going to... I think it's going to start with engineers and builders building the basics of a Mars colony and making something that is habitable enough that they can bring more people who are going to do more things and expand gradually. And I would think that probably the Mars Society with Robert Zubrin, I think those guys are making progress on that. I think there's a lot of ideas about how the Mars colony starts that I would encourage you to follow the Mars Society and actually get... they have a lot of events. They have a lot of publications. Take a look at what they're doing. Didn't Bono invest in Palm? I don't know about that. SpaceX will have its own cell phone service. I don't think so. I don't think that makes sense. Do you think Tesla will integrate robots into their Robo-Taxi fleet for final foot delivery? I do think that's an interesting idea, Furco, that there's this question about, if you follow ARK Invest and their Big Ideas PDF, just Google ARK Invest Big Ideas, and I think you'll find it's pretty interesting discussion of the future, what might happen. They think that we're going to see restaurants using flying drones to deliver food to homes. And I think robo-taxis are going to be a more sensible way of delivering meals to homes than flying drones. But there is that question of, like, if it's a flying drone, it can fly right up to your front door, right to your patio, and drop the food right there. If it's a robo-taxi, it's sort of in your driveway. How does it get the food the last steps to your front door, especially if you're in an apartment building? So I think having a robot inside the robo-taxi that takes whatever the meal is out and walks it up to the front door would make some sense. I'm not sure how necessary it is, but that might work. So the moon would be better off for being a luxury resort just 3 days away. Yes, I think the moon would be... I don't know if luxury is the right word, but I think it makes a lot more sense that people would take short trips to the moon. I don't think anybody's going to take a vacation to Mars for 30 months. 6 months on a rocket, 18 months on the planet, 6 months back. That doesn't sound like an ideal vacation to me. Dave Elliott, read Tesla Apocalypse. Not sure if I really want Tesla's name dragged through as many bailouts as the auto industry is about to go through. It's going to be dragged through that, as whether we like it or not. Let's make fun with it. Do I think that tunneling opportunities from continent to continent? Oh, so Chris Martin asked, do you think there will be tunneling opportunities from continent to continent? So my answer to that is yes. I believe that I've been fleshing this out a little bit more. This is related to the Boring Company. I have this idea, which I don't think is crazy. It sounds crazy, but I don't think it's crazy. I call it the boring bearing. So you run Boring Company tunnels from San Diego or maybe even Mexico up the west coast of the United States into Canada through Alaska, through the Bering Strait, into Russia, and down to China, down to Beijing, Shanghai, down and maybe even to Southeast Asia. Maybe there's a spur that goes over to Japan and South Korea. And maybe you have a spur that goes, after it reaches Russia, goes maybe along the Arctic Circle and reaches over to Northern Europe and then down into Southern Europe and so on. And so there's 4 tunnels. So 2 tunnels, or at least there's 4 tunnels between, 2 tunnels between Los Angeles and China. And maybe there's only 2 more tunnels. But 2 tunnels that are between the US and China are for shipping containers. Maybe that extends to Europe. I'm not sure how much shipping container traffic there is between the US and Europe. US, Canada, and Europe, I should say. And then the other 2 tunnels are Hyperloop. So with the shipping container tunnels, you would eliminate all shipping container traffic across the Pacific Ocean. It would be more efficient, it would cost less, it would be faster, it would be weatherproof, it would be safer. Same thing with Hyperloop. You would eliminate all commercial air travel from the US to, from North America. And you could probably get Europe in on this too if you do that spur across the Arctic Circle, northern Russia down to Europe. LA to Shanghai would be 5 hours and it would be cheap. Now, Starship point to point would be faster. So I'm not sure which makes more sense, but Starship point to point is probably less safe than a tunnel. So, Pilgrim Bruce, thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate that. Anybody who's interested, you can support this channel by doing super chats or super stickers. And if you have a question, I'm more likely to see it if it's in a super chat. I don't make that much money on these live streams usually, so any little bit helps. Patreon helps, of course. Link in the description below. Buy the t-shirts. Elon Be Less Wrong is the most popular t-shirt in February. So link below to elonbits.com. Let's see. So Dave Elliott says Starship point to point is for the rich or necessity of speed. I think the cost of Starship point to point might come down to something reasonable, but I think Hyperloop is going to be much, much cheaper. Tunnels would be electric powered while rockets are methane, hydrogen, kerosene. Starship is methane. The tunnels would be electric powered, yes. They would be basically running from solar and wind, ultimately. Do I think Apple Car will be a contender with Tesla? Do I think Apple Car will be a contender with Tesla? No. What year do I think Robo-Taxi starts? I think Robo-Taxi starts 2022. I think we're going to see FSD be as good or better than human by the end of this year. And I think the Robo-Taxi network will start somewhere in 2022. Ideally Florida, where I live, but also California, Texas, and China. 3D printing houses with paper or wood pulp instead of concrete. I think those are interesting ideas, but does it scale? Same question. Thomas Stanley, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I'm not stopping. How would the tunnels fare in earthquakes? This is a very common question. The tunnels do fine in earthquakes. There are tunnels all over the world that have survived earthquakes well. In Japan, in California, tunnels do fine in earthquakes. They do better than the ground does. Chris Martin, how will the scale Starship's cargo transport capabilities and the traditional transport systems intersect? The speed of emergency supplies worldwide seems to have an intersection point. Speed 100 tons of emergency supplies. So yeah, I think Starship point to point makes sense for people who are in a real hurry and can afford it, and Hyperloop will make sense for people who are in a mild hurry and don't mind. And I think Hyperloop's going to be very, very inexpensive, so that's going to make a lot of sense. When is the margin model coming? I'm working on the margin model. I'm hoping to get it out this week. I'm not confident I'm going to get it out this week because I have a busy week, but I'm going to try. This may be a bad week for videos for me. Couldn't the Gigafactory idea be spun out to other interested companies, thus cutting down on shipping worldwide? So far I haven't seen a lot of other sources for that idea. I don't know how you spin off I think the Gigafactory concept, it certainly makes sense that others could learn from Tesla's manufacturing approach, but it doesn't seem like anybody wants to learn from it. Tony asks, where do you source your news to keep up with Elon? Anything other than Twitter? So I don't just follow Elon on Twitter. I follow a lot of sources related. I would call it Tesla Twitter. That's a nickname for the community. I get a lot of news about what's happening, not just with Elon and Tesla, but Tesla, SpaceX, and so on from other sources like Scott Manley and Everyday Astronaut are really good sources for rocket news. There's a lot of other good news on Twitter. And then I just do Google News. I do Google News every day before I do this video, before I do this live stream. Pilgrim Proust, why does battery swap not work in the battery leasing model? Leasing battery reduces purchase price of vehicle. Swap model enables this. Station with 12 batteries serves over 2,000 customers. So let me address this because, Pilgrim, I just made a video about, I'm guessing you saw my video that I made about battery swap. There's 3 fundamental problems with battery swap. First fundamental problem is you can't do structural backpack and battery swap. Structural pack is an innovation that Tesla has developed that will make electric vehicles much, much more efficient, much better, much cheaper, etc. Better performing, all of that. You can't do battery swap if you have structural pack. Throughput is a huge problem. You do these battery swap stations and you say, oh, well, we change batteries in 5 minutes. Okay, but how much does it cost to build a battery swap station? How long is the line, right? So basically a battery swap station can do, optimistically, and I think this is overly optimistic, 12 vehicles an hour. That's if everything works smoothly all the time, it'll do 12 vehicles an hour. That seems unlikely. You're probably more likely 10 vehicles an hour at best. Well, if you have 20, my ballpark guess is that the cost of building a battery swap station is comparable to the cost of building a supercharger station with 20 superchargers. Well, 20 superchargers are going to do basically 40 vehicles an hour. So why would you want something that costs, that for the same price you can throughput 40 vehicles an hour compared to 10 vehicles an hour? I think that's a no-brainer. And the third thing is a battery swap requires having extra batteries on hand. And I've gotten a lot of comments on my YouTube video about this saying, oh, they only need 13 batteries or they only need 6 batteries to make it work. And that generally reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of, well, then you're going to have a lot of chargers built into your... If you're going to charge 13 batteries at once in your swap station, then you have to have 13 chargers in addition to your swap station. And those chargers probably cost as much as 13 superchargers. So you're already at 13 superchargers plus the swap station compared to putting in superchargers, where 10 superchargers probably has more throughput than your swap station. And what a very common mistake people make is they say, well, the swap station will charge at a high rate. Klaus, thank you very much for your support. Cormac, thank you very much for your support. Boring company tunnels will use carbon cure. I think Cormac is referring to some sort of carbon in the concrete segments that are used to shore up the tunnel. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Cormac. So anyway, if you're interested in the swap issue, check out the video I published yesterday. I think I explained it pretty well, but some people don't get it. Let's see. Where was that? Did you have a question, Klaus? I don't know. Klaus says, would I make it to the moon as a tourist? I'm 58. How much should I... So Klaus, I think the answer to your question is that I think there will be tourist opportunities to the moon within the next 10 years. I'm guessing it's going to be expensive at first. I'm guessing the first few trips are going to be at least $100,000, maybe more. But eventually I think the cost will come down. And I think that would be an interesting trip. I think going into Earth orbit would probably be a lot easier. Doing a loop around the moon, which is the Dear Moon mission, will probably be less expensive. But I do think we're going to see some kinds of tourist opportunities to the moon in the next 10 to 20 years. Let's see. All of a sudden, there's a lot of questions. Why wouldn't the tunnels be powered by ocean current technology? I don't know enough about that. So I think I addressed battery swap. I hope people got that. India will be bigger than anticipated. India has to get their economy order and get their regulatory structure in order for things to get better. I'm hoping that India can fix those problems, but it's really hard for people who have power to give up their power. China did it. The Chinese government has a lot of power, but they did allow for capitalism to thrive. I don't know if India could follow that model. Wyborn, when can you make time for a video on libertarian solutions for America? I've made videos on libertarian stuff before I got going on this SpaceX Tesla kick. I don't think my audience is interested in my libertarian solutions for America. so I don't make those videos. I have a lot of ideas. Maybe I should make a video like that. Maybe it'll happen, but I don't think it's going to happen yet. Stuart Parrott, thank you very much for joining the channel. I really appreciate that. You can join the YouTube channel. I personally prefer people to do the Patreon, and I do more on Patreon, but Stuart joined as an exclusive content member. I do put some exclusive content on the community section of my page where I post things. I was going to post my spreadsheets for the margins model, but YouTube doesn't have a thing for posting PDFs on the community page, so I couldn't do that. So you can join the Patreon for $1. So I think that makes more sense than I do try to do things for channel members and exclusive content members, but I do more on Patreon. Also, YouTube takes 30% of the money. Patreon takes 5% of the money, so Patreon's more attractive for that reason. And I have a big following on Patreon. I have like 130 Patreons now, patrons. Wife swap and battery swap are both bad ideas. I think it depends on the wife and the battery, doesn't it? Yes, Happy Pi Day. I want to know what people think about this. I think that March 14th at 3:50 a.m. is Pi moment, is Pi minute. I don't know what the seconds are. I didn't figure that out yet, because 3.14159 is about 16% of the day, would be about 3:50 a.m. Probably could go a little further and get the seconds. I didn't go that far. I'm not that much of a geek yet. Let's see. I think the Model S Plaid is going to be soon, and the Model S Plaid Plus is going to be delivered before the end of the year. But if you order it now, you're not going to get it. If you order it now, you're not going to get it till next year. I think the demand for Model S Plaid and Model S long range skyrocketed. Happy Pi Day, Stuart. Maybe Amazon Explore that. What? Oh, I don't see what Carl's talking about. Gigapress houses. Gigapress houses. That's interesting. I'm not saying that's stupid. There could be something there. You must support the CCP when your business reaches a certain size or influence in China, says Johnny B. My impression is that if your business is anti the U.S. government, it's not going to do well. And if it's anti the state government, it's not going to do well. Ask Elon how the California government treated Tesla. So Pilgrim Proust, battery swap enables battery leasing, which lowers the upfront price of the car by $8,000 to $10,000. I disagree with that, Pilgrim. I believe that the batteries... So let's suppose you have a 50 kilowatt hour pack. What really lowers the cost of batteries and lowers the cost of cars is lowering the cost of batteries. So if you can do a vehicle with a 50 kilowatt hour pack and you can get the cost per kilowatt hour down to $40 a kilowatt hour, then it's only $2,000 for the battery pack, which is what we're talking about in the Model 3 standard range in China now, is a roughly 50 or 54 kilowatt hour pack with lithium iron phosphate batteries. That's going to be around $2,000. So you're not going to save $8,000 to $10,000 if it only costs $2,000 for the battery. Peter says battery swap would save the space versus the superstation charging stations. Yeah, except there's a line of people waiting to get into the swap station, and that takes up space too. Swap wife for doggy. I have a wife and a doggy. Warren, geoengineering is one potential huge global impact business vertical to think about. What is geoengineering, Tony? What are we doing geo-wise? What does that mean? What happened to the performance? The performance Model S is gone, replaced by Plaid and Plaid Plus. Conspiracy theories about Bill Gates is true. COVID-19 is pandemic. I am not going to argue with that. Not saying I disagree with it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I'm not going to argue with it. Okay, so Amit Rana hits my main topic here. I want to address this. He says, "Be like Elon?" ? Dude, no one can be Elon. Elon is a once in a century, or should I say, once in a 9x century guy. I agree with you that we can't really be Elon, but we can try to be like Elon. We can try to find things in the world that could be made better. We can find ways that we can make the world a little bit better. And ultimately, if we can find things that we can not only make better, but we can scale them, then we can do more. I'm not saying we're going to run 4 companies, we're going to change the world in any way close to what Elon is doing, but we can, if 100 of us try to be a little bit like Elon and we make a little bit of progress, then maybe 100 of us together will be 1/10 of Elon. And that wouldn't be a bad thing. And maybe it's 1,000 of us and we get to a half Elon. Maybe we can become some sort of measure. You know, like a tenth of an Elon is this much societal change, and a half Elon is this much societal change. I don't have any opinions on Palantir. I don't follow that company. I don't follow a lot of other companies unless something happens that draws my attention to them, like Lucid. You know, it's funny. I never even really paid attention to Nikola. Everybody else has got all these opinions on Nikola. I never paid attention. Tony Betancourt says, Warren, geoengineering is the deliberate large-scale intervention in the Earth's natural systems to counteract climate change. You know, my wife and I have been watching, it's this movie with a train. I can't think of the name of the movie. It's a TV show, I mean, with a train. It's this, like, train that's 1,000 cars long that's, like, this unstoppable, somehow perpetual motion machine that travels the Earth. There was this effort to solve climate change, and they overshot, and the Earth froze. And somebody created this train. These people created this train that travels the Earth, and there's, like, 1,000 cars, and they created this whole drama based on it. I can't think of the name of it. It's really dumb premise, but it's still fun to watch. Michael Reynolds, Earthship concept. So Eddie, so anybody who has this idea for here's what we could do with housing, don't tell me what the idea is. You investigate it. You get people together and you do it. That's the. I mean, it's not Warren's going to be like Elon. It's like we're all going to be like Elon. We all have that. We should all have that goal that we can make the world a better place. Not just telling me to do it or telling Elon what to do, but you have the ability. Some of you at least have the ability to get together some money, some friends, identify people, network, build something, do something. Let's be amazing. Let's go. Snowpiercer, yes, thank you. Been watching it. I don't love it. I think it's a really dumb premise, but that concept of like, so Tony, I think the idea is, I don't have faith that we would do a good job of geoengineering the Earth. I think it's very complex system. There's a whole lot going on, and I don't trust. I think, you know, doing things like, hey, let's just stop polluting as much. Let's pollute less, including CO2, but other pollution. Let's pollute less. There's a lot we can do. Yeah, I really should watch the movie. We're thinking after we finish the series, we're going to watch the movie Snowpiercer. It's really dumb premise, though. Like, what happened? Can somebody tell me on Snowpiercer why aren't people living in caves? Like, I don't care how cold the Earth gets, you'd be able to go down in caves. There was a place, if anybody's familiar with upstate New York, there's a place in Schoharie County called Howe Caverns, where the caverns are really deep, and the temperature's like a consistent 50 degrees no matter how hot or cold it is outside. If you go down deep enough in the Earth, it's going to be fine. Why would you get on a train instead of going into a cave? Doesn't make any sense to me. All right, we'll have to watch the movie. It's not that we're going to be Elon, it's that we're trying to be like Elon. Like, when I played basketball, I wanted to be like Michael Jordan. I wasn't anywhere close to Michael Jordan, but I tried to be like Michael Jordan. Maybe I tried to be like Steve Kerr, I don't know. I probably tried to be like Michael Jordan, which was really dumb. I should have tried to be like Steve Kerr. Just make shots. Watch Mars on Netflix. What is that? Is that a series, Tony? Oh, Victor from Altamont. Cool. Altamont, New York. Victor Block just commented in the chat. He's from Altamont, New York. He's hoping to move to Puerto Rico or Florida soon. Victor, I've been to the Altamont Fair many times. I grew up in Guilderland. I spent a lot of time. You know, I've been to the Stewarts. If you search the Altamont Enterprise, you'll find my name. I was on the Guilderland Town Board. Well, I understand we're not geoengineering, we're geo-screwing up. We're not engineering it, we're just screwing it up. And the question is, how badly are we doing it? What can we do better? If we make substantial changes, we will reduce our CO2 emissions and other pollution, and we can make the world a better place. I think I did see Interstellar, yeah. Let's see. It's Carl, exactly. Carl says, before Elon, I didn't think about it. Now when people say I'm waiting for blah, blah, blah to do blah, 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 I now think, why are you waiting? Just do it yourself. Be like Kurt. I don't think I'm a Kurt Rambis guy. So yeah, you know, I really think that there's something there that we can watch. We watch celebrities. We watch, you know, business entrepreneurs like Branson and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, and we watch what they're doing and we get excited. But, you know, we're all capable. We all have power within us. It's a little bit of a Jordan Peterson rant here, but, you know, I'll suggest this book, 12 Rules for Life. I think it's a great book. I don't read a lot of books, but I read that book. It's a great book. If you find yourself sitting on your couch a lot, not doing anything, read this book and figure out, all right, the first thing to do, clean your room. Second thing, what can you do to make your life better? How do you get off your butt and make your life better? How do you get off your butt and make just your family's life better, your neighborhood's life better, your larger community better? Build yourself up, believe in yourself, find out what you can do to make things better around you, and then just keep growing and learning. Tremendous opportunity for all of us to do something. So is Mars on Netflix? Is that like a documentary or is that like a series? That sounds like more like a documentary. Okay, I will. Okay, Tony says it's a documentary. Okay, I will check that out. Thank you. Brett McIver, Warren, CO2 ain't the problem. Plants love it. It's the other stuff that's way worse. I tend to think that particulate emissions are a bigger problem. Mercury emissions are a big problem. There's a lot of environmental problems we don't talk anymore because people are so focused on CO2. And I'm not saying CO2 isn't a problem. I'm just saying, well, there's a lot of other problems out there. And if we deal with those other things, we're probably reducing CO2 emissions anyway. And going to EVs, going to solar, going to wind, all of this is going to massively reduce CO2 emissions anyway. Opzar says, is that the Jordan Peterson's book? The first Jordan Peterson book that I'm thinking of is 12 Rules for Life. He does have a new one out, but 12 Rules for Life is the one I was talking about. Let's see. What's the name of that book again, Warren? 12 Rules for Life. 12 Rules for Life. I should put a link to it in the description below. Stop watching so much YouTube. Well, I think there's a lot. I will say this. I think YouTube is great. I have learned a lot from YouTube. When I was interested in venture capital, I looked on YouTube and found out more. When you want to find out what's going on with Tesla, you can find out a lot. You get a lot of... one of the challenges I would say with anything, and YouTube is an example of it, is what's called signal-to-noise ratio. There's a lot of noise in any channel, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or TV news. There's a lot of noise. And one of the challenges is to find the true information in the midst of all the mess, the signal in the noise. I hope that I'm more signal than noise. I think there's a lot of noise out there. But I think you can get a lot out of YouTube. You can learn how to do a lot of things through YouTube. It's great. So I'm a big fan of YouTube. Well, so Brett says Warren, ozone and water vapor are 1,000 times worse for heat trapping. I think that's an issue too. I just think there's all kinds of stuff that we're putting out there that's bad for the environment. And no, Peter Young, EV battery vehicles are not just as harmful to the environment as ICE vehicles. EV battery vehicles are much less harmful to the environment. They don't spit out diesel. Peter, I don't know do you live in China, Peter? Do you breathe the air in China? Have you ever been to China? I haven't been to China. I've been to South Korea. I was in South Korea when it was on its way up. And I was in Busan in particular, and it just felt dirty. This was 1994, 95, somewhere in there. It just felt dirty. I think South Korea has gotten a lot cleaner as they've advanced. I just mean like so maybe it was just Busan. Maybe Busan's a more industrial city. It's a port city. I don't know. But Busan, South Korea, I think South Seoul as well. They just felt a lot dirtier than Japan. And I suspect Korea's done a lot better and has gotten a lot cleaner. But if you want to breathe clean air, you don't want internal combustion engine vehicles. Yeah, I think signal-to-noise ratio is a huge, huge concept, and people don't get it. Tony asked this question. Warren, do you have exit criteria for your Tesla holdings? Will you try to reload if there's more market dips? So I don't really have exit criteria. I'm planning on holding for a long time just because I think it's going to go up, and I think that the Wall Streeters and the short-termers are going to effectively keep the price down below what its real value is for a long time. So, probably something like 10 years, I might sell some stock, in 2030, 2031, something like that. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Jim Whitehead. If you check the chat, Jim Whitehead posted a link to the 12 Rules for Life. Thank you, Jim, for posting it. But you just go on Amazon and search for 12 Rules for Life. It's a great book. Do I think the lower-end Teslas will hurt the brand? No. I think the lower-end Tesla will help the brand. Everything Tesla does helps the brand. Oh, so Tony asks, will I try to reload if there's more market dips? Tony, I have bought on dips already. I bought a small amount when it was in the 780s. Then it dropped to 640 and I bought more. And then it dropped to 612 and I bought more. I don't have everything in Tesla, so I have other cash on hand or other investments, and then sometimes I just, in certain accounts, money comes in. So some money came in and I bought more Tesla stock. And I'm particularly happy with the purchase at 612 or whatever it was. My personal average cost basis is still $75 a share, so I'm pretty happy with where Tesla is. So let's see. Just looking to see comments in the chats. NIO will take over in China. Okay, David Wong says NIO will take over in China. David, is NIO actually making money? Can they scale? Are their vehicles really going to be competitive with something that has structural pack and 4680 cells? I think NIO's doing okay. I think NIO could be number 2 or number 3. Maybe. I'm not sure how effective NIO's going to be. I will give them credit that they're at least making vehicles and succeed and selling them and having some level of success, which is a lot better than some of the companies that people talk about in America that aren't doing anything. So no, my average cost basis is $75 a share. It went up. It was $67 a share, and then I bought some more. I also have some in another account that has a higher cost basis that I've done more purchasing recently. But still, my average cost basis in that account is probably like 300 or probably less than 300. I think it's 150. I think that's my average cost basis in that other account. It's a family account. It's not my account, but I manage it. When is Scotty Kilmer video dropping? I am working. So yeah, that's probably the video I'll do next. Is somebody sent me video of this guy named Scotty Kilmer who's been trashing Tesla nonstop. He does other things. He's got this channel with 4 million viewers, and his videos are just like, they got stale. He doesn't get nearly the views you think you would get with 4 million subscribers. But I've started working on a video picking apart his insanity. So maybe I'll get that one done before the margins video. Margins video is probably going to be more than a week away. It's got stuff going on this week coming up. What are my top positions? My top position is Tesla. My second position is Amazon. I have investments in S&P 500 index funds. I think I still have Coca-Cola, McDonald's. I sold Facebook recently. I have a couple of small put options on Lyft and Uber because I think Uber and Lyft are going to fail. When the Robo-Taxi network goes live, I think Uber and Lyft are going to die. Let's see. How about mining the materials for batteries? The world hasn't seen the destruction yet. I don't know if you're aware of this, Peter, but the world does a lot of mining. We've been doing a lot of mining for a long time. I'm not aware that there's anything special about mining the material for batteries as compared to mining the material for steel. We mine for a lot of stuff, aluminum, whatever. I think when we mine for a lot of things, we get a lot of different components out of that mining anyway. I have not read Bill Gates' new book, and I probably would not read a book by Bill Gates. I don't think Bill Gates is a particularly good writer. I don't think he's particularly insightful. I think that Bill Gates is particularly full of crap. If you didn't see it, he was asked whether he shorted Tesla, and I don't talk about my investments right after he talked about his investments. So I'm not a big fan of Bill Gates. I mean, in some ways he's a hero. He made the world a better place, but I'm not a fan of him recently. Let's see. Do I think any ICE manufacturer will survive? Which ones? This is a question I think about a lot. I think that the internal combustion industry will die. Probably 1 or 2 of them will survive. My best guess is Hyundai. I think Hyundai will be supported by the Korean government to the end of the earth. So Hyundai will if they fail, they will get bailed out. If they fail again, they will get bailed out. The Korean government probably will not let them die. Maybe BMW can pull it off. Maybe. I don't know. I think that it's more likely that there will be startup companies that will figure it out. Like, here's the thing. When you look at what the internal combustion industry is doing, and really a lot of EV startups are doing, is they're basically trying to make a car that's as good as the 2018 Model 3. And so far, no one has succeeded. Okay? So any new EV that comes out today is not as good as the 2018 Model 3. Meanwhile, Tesla is making newer vehicles and better vehicles. And the 2021 Model Y is significantly better than the 2018 Model 3. And the 2023 Compact is going to be next level up, dramatically better than what we're seeing with the Model 3 and Model Y now. And the Model Y that's going to come out of Texas and Berlin, and ultimately they'll redo Fremont to do it this way, and Shanghai, will already be next level up from what they're doing now. And then the 2023 Compact will be a level above that. And all these companies are shooting to try to catch up to the Model 3 while Tesla's sprinting ahead. And what they should be doing is, if they watched Battery Day, they should say, all right, let's design a vehicle with structural pack. All right, there's going to be this new volume of 4680 cells out there that are going to be more effective than the old battery style. Let's start doing 4680 cells. Let's build something for 4680 cells with a structural pack. And let's start casting, try to die cast the whole vehicle. If somebody said, you know what, instead of trying to catch up to the 2018 Model 3, let's try to catch up to the 2023 Tesla Compact. We'll use 48 volt wire. They've given you so much about where they're heading. So do that. If somebody said we're going to try to make something like that, they'd have a much better shot of succeeding. Do I think the $25,000 Tesla will be stainless steel like Cybertruck or a painted car like the rest of the lineup? It might be both. I could see them doing both. I think we don't know yet how effective Cybertruck manufacturing will be. And if Cybertruck manufacturing ends up being very, very cost effective and very, very good for doing high volumes, then I could see them doing another. And if it sells, right, then I could see them saying, well, let's make another cyber vehicle. Maybe it's going to be a cyber SUV. Maybe it's going to be a Wolverine, smaller Cybertruck. Will they do a regular sedan? Probably not. But an SUV would make sense. I don't know what you were talking about, the U.S. banning China. I'm not familiar with that. Jim Whitehead says the Mach-E is pretty good and dealers are selling it for $10,000 above list price. It got so bad that Forbes stopped the giant markup. So I actually looked at this comparison recently and I compared the Mach-E, the extended range premium Mach-E with all-wheel drive, to the Tesla long-range Model 3 from 2018. And the Mach-E cost significantly more and didn't have as much range. Because the all-wheel drive Mach-E only has, with the extended range, only has 270 miles. The long-range Model 3 from 2018 had 310 miles of range. So the Mach-E still doesn't quite make it to the 2018 Model 3. And the Model 3 will probably have a longer life. It will probably have a longer battery life. It'll probably design better and will live longer. Matt C says, I think I'm about 1.8 million on waitlist for Cybertruck. What percentage of pre-orders follow through? Approximately when will I get my truck? So I think if you're I don't know if anybody's 1.8 million. Last I saw, there was 1 million people on the waitlist. I think that, I'm hoping that I'm one of the early ones on the list. I'm probably around 10,000. So I'm hoping I get my Cybertruck December or January, something like that. But maybe it'll be February or March. I think that they probably will not produce more than 50 or 100,000 in the first year in 2022. And then they'll probably scale to 250,000 a year or more in 2023. So it's going to be a while if you're not in early. But, maybe they'll scale and say, let's build another line. I mean, if the demand is that high, they may just build a lot more. Somebody asked me if Tesla is still a buy today in 2021. Look, I'm like 80 or 85% invested in Tesla. Obviously, I think and I have bought recently. I bought at 612. I'm not an investment advisor. I can't tell you what to do. I think Tesla's a great stock, and I think it's going to go to 10,000 or more in 2030. Really, I think 10,000 is like close to my bear number. I think Tesla could very likely go to $40,000 a share, $50,000 a share in 2030. So if that doesn't sound like a buy to you, I don't know what will. I mean, I guess people like to play short-term games and well, if I buy at 700 and it drops to 600, I'm going to feel bad. Well, if you buy at 700 and it goes to 50,000, if you didn't buy at 700, it never dropped to 600 and it went to 50,000, you'd feel really bad you didn't buy at 700. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not an investment advisor. That's what I think. Brady asks, what market share will Tesla have in 2023? I think depends what market you're referring to. I think Tesla in 2023 will probably produce a few million vehicles, 3, 4, 5 million vehicles in 2023. That's a rough guess. I don't know what share that is, and I don't know what market we're talking about. Stainless steel semi, interesting. Actually, another interesting idea is, could Tesla use semi to make a more powerful pickup than Cybertruck? So a semi-based cyber pickup that's larger, sort of like a Ford F550 or something like that. Yeah, I definitely think that Ford is losing money on the Mach-E. I think that Cybertruck, a high ground clearance SUV from Tesla. So I could definitely see a cyber-based SUV. I could definitely see a cyber-based semi. Yeah. What do I think Kathy Wood's price prediction will be? I don't know. I think it's going to be higher than her last one. She was very clear in an interview that she thinks things got better. Why don't we see any other EV manufacturer using the supercharging network? Great question, Norris. I love this question. Let me ask you a question, Norris. If you were Burger King and McDonald's offered to sell Whoppers at Burger King, and every time your customers came to buy Whoppers, they saw McDonald's everywhere, would you want to sell your Whoppers at a McDonald's? If you're Ford and you set it up so people can charge their Ford at a Tesla supercharging station, then every time they charge their car, they're getting branding for Tesla. They don't want their vehicles to charge at Tesla because they don't want them to be exposed to Tesla branding and see how much better the Tesla charging network is than the other charging networks, because people are going to say, why am I in this crappy car? I should get a Tesla. Yeah, I heard that about Doma saying that about valuations, yes. And licensing, should Tesla license something to manufacturers? Yeah, Tesla's going to say, okay, put Tesla inside on your car. It's like Intel said Intel inside. No car manufacturer is going to want to say Tesla inside on their car. Tang Fam asks, autonomous aside, the Lucid Air claims to have 500 miles per charge. How legitimate is that claim? And if it's legit, is that a threat to Tesla? I suggest you watch you go look at my channel for videos about Lucid Motors to find out what I think. But short answer to the second, number one, I don't think it's a legitimate claim. And number two, it is clear on their own description, they are not a threat to Tesla. Their average selling price will be over $100,000 a vehicle until something like 2026. And Tesla's average selling price is around $50,000. So a company making $100,000 cars is not a threat to a company making $50,000 cars. Max asks, could Tesla include a water filter that could harness air conditioning water to have drinking water on board their cars and also a power outlet for loading a camp? I think that's something they're looking at. I don't think you need a filter. I think the water coming off an air conditioner is already filtered effectively. They may be working on something like that in Cybertruck. I'm not sure. Any podcasts or books you recommend at the moment? Well, I recommend the Fair DUI book, which is linked below, and I recommend 12 Rules for Life. My Fair DUI book is very inexpensive. It's on Kindle. It's on paperback. I don't charge a lot for it. And it's a really interesting look at drunk driving and how people handle a lot of people have experience with drunk driving. A lot of people, if you're in America, you probably know someone who has a drunk driving conviction and you just don't know it, or a drunk driving arrest. Like something like 10% of the American population has a drunk driving conviction. People don't realize that. So I think it's really worth reading. If you think it's never going to happen to you, you're probably wrong. Read the book. Fair DUI. I meant to have a copy to show it off. Oh, I got it. This is the book I wrote, Fair DUI. Stay safe and sane. It says, stay safe and sane in a world gone mad, MADD. Fair DUI, that's my book. That's my wife's hand. So check it out on Amazon, link below, Fair DUI. I really do. It's got like 4.8 stars or something like that on Amazon rating. It's good. Berlin Model Y will kill all competition. I have this theory that when the Berlin and Texas Model Y come out and automotive journalists drive it, they're going to cry. It's going to be that good. It's going to weigh 500 pounds less. My estimate, it's going to weigh 500 pounds less than the current generation Model Y because of structural pack and the front piece casting. And it's going to be a stiffer chassis, and it's going to have a lower polar moment of inertia, if I'm saying that right. It's going to corner better, it's going to handle better, it's going to brake better, it's going to accelerate better. It's going to make automotive journalists cry. Absolutely crazy. I don't know anything about Canoe. When do you expect production of Model 3 in Berlin? I think Berlin and Texas will probably start initial production in the third quarter, end of the third quarter, and they'll start actually producing vehicles in some volume in the fourth quarter. Too Many Phils asked, what did I think of the Lucid video of Peter Rawlinson driving the car? So there was, if you go to the Lucid Motors channel, or maybe it was on, I think it was on their YouTube channel, there's a video of Peter Rawlinson driving the car on Skyline Boulevard in California, which is a very, very pleasant road to drive, very nice views. It's in the there's redwood trees on the side of the road. It's a great spot. I went to Stanford for 3 years, and I've been on Skyline Boulevard many times. There's this moment at starting about 2:51 in the video, there's about the next 6 to 8 seconds, there's this moment where all of a sudden the ride gets really bumpy, and they cut away too late, and you can see how bumpy the ride got. So, there's a reason why they cut away. Something wasn't right there. So, let's see. Oh, I showed it off? Oops. Thank you, Active789, for noticing. Yes, I carry a pistol. And yes, it's a Glock. Model 3 is like a BMW, only faster, Sandy Monroe. Let's see. Yes, it's a Glock 26, 10-round magazine, 1 in the chamber, 2 extra 12-round mags, extended mags that I carry with me. Apple will buy Lucid and take on Tesla. Good luck with that. Apple, I hear this all the time. Apple's going, why the hell would Apple buy Lucid? Let me know when Apple produces a car. Yeah, Jim Whitehead just in the chat, Fair DUI is just $2.99 on Kindle. I make like $1 a book. I make like $1 each. I've sold like 1,000 of them. I'm not paying the mortgage on it, but I think you'll like, honestly, I think if you like the way I talk, if you like the way I think, you'll probably like the book, and you'll probably learn something significant if you drive. If you drive in America in particular, it's probably relevant to Canada, Australia, some other countries. A lot of it's not relevant to a lot of other countries, but a lot of it is relevant. It's mainly very US focused, I would say, but I still think it might be somewhat interesting. I haven't looked at Lordstown Motors at all. Should Tesla sell Bitcoin gains? No. If your battery is dead, supercharging is better than walking. Elon is dedicated to reducing CO2, goes beyond the marketing stuff. I'm not sure what that relates to. What kind of time frame and scale do you foresee in the Tesla 2023 Compact? That's a good question, Chris. I have a video about that, a recent video where I talk about the next generation Gigafactory, and that is about the Tesla 2023 Compact. I think that in 2022, they will announce that they're building new factories. They'll probably have a day where they go through what's going to happen in the new factories, and they will start building new factories. My prediction is that they will build a factory in Texas, probably in Austin, one in Europe, probably in Berlin, but I'm not sure it'll be in Berlin. It might be somewhere else. It's got to be in a city where young engineers are going to have fun. So Berlin is a good choice for that reason. That's why they chose Berlin in the first place. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was in Berlin, but maybe it'll be somewhere else. I have a hunch it'll be Berlin, and then one in Shanghai or near Shanghai. And I think the volume of that factory is going to be much, much greater. So Fremont tops out around 600,000 between Model 3Y and Model S and X. I think it could conceivably reach 750,000 when they make some improvements. Shanghai, again, probably around 750,000 will be the maximum for that factory generation. It may be possible to upgrade those factories to do better, but that's where I think they're going to be. I think the next generation, and so Berlin and Austin, I think, are going to be closer to 2 million vehicles a year each. They're going to be much, much more productive for their factories. And then I think the next generation Gigafactory is going to be 4 million vehicles a year each. And I think you're going to get to the point where, when you combine that with the Robo-Taxi network and that the vehicles are that much more useful, you may get to a point where there's no need to go further. That may be the last generation Gigafactory, because you make 4 of them. If each one of them makes 4 million vehicles, and you make 4 of those factories, one in China, one in the US, one in Europe, and maybe one more in, let's say, India for the heck of it, because that's what everybody talks about. Then you're spitting out, between that and the existing factories, 20 million vehicles a year. They're all Robo-Taxis. Each Robo-Taxi replaces at least 5 cars. You've basically you're on the way to replacing the world fleet without building any more factories. Bellanena asks if my book is on ebooks. It is on Kindle, on Amazon Kindle. I don't know what ebooks is. I thought Amazon Kindle was an ebook. I don't think it's on anything else, but I could be wrong. What did I make of Elon's recent Woketopia tweet? I think I saw that. I didn't think it meant... I think a lot of Elon's tweets are just silly. I didn't see anything big on that. It makes sense for Apple to buy Lucid since Apple has the autonomous driving software and Lucid has the manufacturing. Well, Apple doesn't have autonomous driving software and Lucid doesn't have manufacturing. So that solves that question. I don't know why people think Apple has autonomous driving software. Where? Warren, talk about forced vaccine. Are you going to take COVID vaccine? I should mention this real quick. I'm going to be on Clubhouse. If you have the Clubhouse app, I'm going to be on Clubhouse tomorrow at 3 p.m. East Coast time. Tomorrow, right about this time, like 5 minutes from now. I'm going to be on Clubhouse the next 2 days. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about Starlink with a guy named Adam Berg, who I think is from Norway. We're going to just talk about Starlink for probably an hour or two. And, he and I are going to talk, and then there's going to be other people asking questions. And then at Tuesday at 3 p.m., I'm going to be talking with a guy named Yankee, I don't know if that's his correct name, about public health versus individual rights, which will be a lot more on that vaccine question. So I will be talking about that. I don't believe that the COVID topics and the libertarian topics really are a fit for this channel anymore. So I will occasionally go libertarian in these Q&A, but I try to stay off that stuff because it's just controversial. It's not really on point for the channel. I have very strong opinions that a lot of you wouldn't like. Let's put it that way. And you can go back on my channel and you can see I made videos about COVID before, and they didn't do that well. So I stopped making them. Pilgrim Prue says, lithium iron phosphate prices per kilowatt hour are still around $100. I don't think that's true. I think that lithium iron phosphate cells per kilowatt hour price for Tesla from CATL are significantly below $100 a kilowatt hour already. I think Tesla is already doing nickel-based cells Tesla is getting nickel-based cells from LG Chem and Panasonic for pretty close to $100 a kilowatt hour already at the cell level. So I think you're wrong, Pilgrim, about battery prices. And Elon has said that they expect to get nickel-based cells down to $60 a kilowatt hour, maybe even $55 or $50 a kilowatt hour within a few years. Lithium iron phosphate will be less expensive, so that's going to get down to $40 a kilowatt hour, is my prediction. I don't know for sure. Pilgrim Prue says NIO is choosing NCM 811 battery leasing combined. So I don't know where you saw that. If you can, Pilgrim Prue, if you can email me a link to that NIO is using nickel cobalt, I think they mean nickel manganese cobalt 811. If you can send me that, I would love to see a link to the story that says that. I think there's a really big question with NMC 811 is whether it is what the cycle life is going to be, how long those batteries are going to last. I think it is unproven whether NMC 811 will have a reliable cycle life. Yes, I have a gun on me if you didn't catch it before. I carry a pistol. This is Florida. 10% of the Florida population has a concealed carry license. If people wonder about Florida, there are 2 million concealed carry licenses in Florida. There's 20 million people. Now, if you take out the children who are under 21 who can't get them, and people who are convicted felons, which is unfortunately a large group of people, and then you take out certain counties where it's less likely, like where I live, in large parts of Florida, roughly half the men are carrying. I'm sorry. That's Florida. Florida. Craig Hagerman, you said Tesla should not sell Bitcoin. Should Tesla consider selling their Bitcoin position to book the gains every quarter and immediately rebuy? No, I don't think Elon Musk is interested in playing earnings games, earnings per share gains, because then you'd have a loss the next quarter if it went down. It creates transactions costs that are unnecessary. They're buying them, they're holding them. Jim Whitehead, anyone who believes in the small government principles of the U.S. founders might be called a libertarian. They are the true radicals today. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know I don't even know how to comment. I think you're right, but I'm not sure how to go deep on that. Anyone know why Elon reached out to Vladimir Putin and didn't follow up with a response that Putin was interested? Elon wanted to have some kind of discussion with Putin on Clubhouse, and so far Putin hasn't been willing to do that. I don't know how good Putin's English is. I don't know if anybody knows that. Does he speak English well? He probably does. Starlink needs Putin's approval. It could be for Starlink. I think he just wanted to talk about something. I'm not sure. Elon does. I don't think Elon treats Clubhouse as. I think that was like an idea for a fun conversation. I do think that Boring Bering, if he wants to go with Boring the Bering Strait, which is probably a little farther down the road, then he's going to need Russia's cooperation for that. There's a lot of room at the Austin site for more factories and more stuff. Absolutely. Open question, what should Tesla do next? Keep doing. 3 gigas announced next year. Well, yeah, I think that if they're going to do this next generation Gigafactory, which if you watch this, I have a video about this recently where I talk about the next generation Gigafactory. If you watch the Sandy Munro interview, Elon talked about, they talked about doing this whole single piece casting of the entire chassis of the car, basically with structural pack in there. They talked about 48 volt wiring, and Elon basically said, well, we have to finish Berlin and Austin first. So I think he wants to do a next generation factory, and it's after that. I'm semi-retired in Florida, but I'm not very good at retiring. I keep doing stuff. No, I'm not an engineer. Sadly, I'm a lawyer. I'm an engineer wannabe. How about that? I wanted to be an engineer, and then I chickened out in college and ended up being a lawyer. I'm a math geek, but how will rising sea levels affect you locally? I'm 20 feet above sea level. I'll be dead before it rises 2 feet. Oh, hi, Per Ulrich Anderson from Sweden. Dojo is close to making AI working, a spin-off from the FSD. The money Tesla will make on AI will make Tesla car business look like peanuts. So thank you again to the Vasa law firm in Sweden for supporting this channel. I don't have that graphic on this particular setup right now, so I can't show it. But, and all my Patreon supporters, links below for Patreon. So yeah, I do think that Dojo could be spun off. So the idea is Dojo is designed to help train the AI, the FSD AI, so that the cars can drive themselves. And there's really an interesting question, which is Dojo is going to be this AI training supercomputer that's better than any existing AI training supercomputer. Once it's achieved its goal of training FSD to drive better than human, and probably a lot better than human, at some point, it's going to be basically done with that job. Well, what do you do with this AI training supercomputer once it's finished that job? Well, you probably do other AI training, and that could be a $100 billion business or more. So maybe they spin off Dojo as its own business. Aardvark says Somalia is the perfect country for libertarians. Actually, there's a lot of places in America that are pretty good for libertarians. There's a lot of places in the world that are good for libertarians. But Somalia, if you look at the history, there was a period where there was a sort of anarchy. And Somalia performed better under anarchy than they performed when they had a central government. So I'm technically an anarcho-capitalist, and I believe that I don't support Ayn Rand's direct philosophy, but I think if you're looking for books to read, I think Ayn Rand's three novels and her novella, the fourth novella, I think those are very good books to read. Anthem is really short. It's a little bit hard reading because of the writing style, but it's really good. Fountainhead is probably the easiest read of all her books. Atlas Shrugged is the best story, but it's really, really long, and there's segments that are just really slow when some character will go on this monologue about the philosophy that I just skip over. But the story is great in Atlas Shrugged. I honestly think that Mars could be Galt's Gulch. That Elon's vision for Mars could be basically Galt's Gulch. It's a place where you can have a much more libertarian society that earthly governments can't screw up. Whether they can keep it that way would be interesting, but I would love to interview Omar Kazi again. Maybe I will do that. That's a great idea. So We the Living is her shortest novel. Anthem is shorter, but it's a much shorter story. But We the Living is like the most depressing book ever written. It's an excellent description. It's a description. Ayn Rand's sort of semi-autobiographical description of her life in Soviet Russia, communist Russia. So I would encourage people to read Ayn Rand. If you've heard all kinds of bad things about her, maybe some of them are true, but the stories are good. They're worth reading. What's funny is the hero characters are hard to believe, but the ordinary characters and the villains are much easier to believe. Any thoughts on Tesla Energy? I think Tesla Energy is. I just did a live stream on Tesla Energy a couple nights ago. Tesla Energy, I think, is going to scale huge over the next. It's going to start scaling in a couple of years, and it's really going to scale huge. I think that solar and power pack will not be, based on the model I'm working on, I think they're sort of like, they're not going to contribute as much as I thought originally. Mega pack is going to be monster business. And there's huge margins in Tesla Energy. Kalina says there are 3 million semi-trucks in the U.S. I believe there are 250,000 new semis bought every year in the U.S. and 1 million in China. Ukraine will be the first libertarian country. Interesting, Oleg. Oleg, send me an email with more information about Ukraine becoming libertarian. I'd like to see that. I have a generally favorable impression of Ukraine, but I don't know more. So send me information on that. I'd love to see something about that. Libertarianism is just another political belief system. Well, you know, I'll go into this for a second. Do you believe that do unto others as you would have them do unto you is a good philosophical basis for any society? I believe that. I believe that the golden rule that you should not do something to other people if you wouldn't want them to do it to you is a good rule. And you should do things for other people that you would expect them to do for you. Those are some good basic rules. Treat others like you would like to be treated. That's a good basic rule for a society. Government violates that rule. Government is special. Government treats itself differently than it treats others. You either like that or you don't like. You either like the founding principle, the golden rule, that is a fundamental principle of any religious philosophy, any sound philosophy. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Government violates that rule every time. Who is John Galt? Indeed. Yeah, I think Elon Musk could be like Hank Rearden, especially when you hear him talking about the alloy for the. Elon Musk talked about creating a new alloy for the aluminum alloy for the casting of the front and rear section of the Model Y. And if you read Atlas Shrugged, Hank Rearden comes up with a new, called it Rearden Metal or Rearden Steel. He comes up with a new steel that's better. So there's a lot of Hank Rearden in Elon Musk, I think. And what's his name? Mark Cuban is supposedly a fan of Fountainhead, which is a different story, but same philosophy, I guess. Will Tesla ever get into hydrogen technology as a battery alternative? No. The Fountainhead's main character was based on Frank Lloyd Wright. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Fountainhead is a much shorter. I think it's a really good story. I just think Atlas Shrugged is a better story. And you know read Orwell, read 1984, read Animal Farm, read what's the one? Can't think of it. Read dystopian fiction generally. There's some great dystopian fiction out there. And look around you and ask yourself, are you sure you're not living in a dystopia right now? I was at a birthday party last night. I'm sorry. Friend of mine turned 50, had a birthday party. Invited. I was very honored to be invited because he didn't invite that many people. There were 2 couples there who hadn't left their houses in a year or more because of COVID. I've been out. I've been doing stuff. I'm flying to New York City for the 3rd time soon. I travel all over the place. I live my life as normal as possible. There's a lot of people who've just like clustered, like they've hidden out in their homes for a year. Is that are you sure we're not living in a dystopia? Are you sure? And here's an interesting question about dystopian fiction. Okay, when you read dystopian fiction, you have the hero character who knows or realizes at some point we're living in a dystopia. There's a lot of characters who don't seem to realize that there's something wrong. Like they think this is the way things are supposed to be. And even not just the villain characters, but even like sort of the ordinary characters in the story don't seem to realize that there's something wrong. And it's the hero character. So like, it's like I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the world we're living in today. I'm like, we're living in a dystopia. I'm sorry, we are living in a dystopia. I'm not sure how long we've been living in a dystopia. Maybe I didn't realize it right away. But somewhere in the last 5 years or so, I figured out we're living in a dystopia. Maybe longer than that. Are you sure? Brave New World is one I was thinking of. Yes, Fahrenheit 451 is different, but Brave New World is the one I was thinking of. Aldous Huxley. That's a great one. I don't care if Orwell was a socialist. I don't care if Ayn Rand was an objectivist. Read the book. Doesn't matter what their philosophy was. If you think it's a good story, you think it's a good story. You can take whatever lessons you want from it without believing in their fundamental ideology. You can read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life without believing in his political views. It's a good book. Read books. Read books by people you don't agree with. Oleg, thank you for your support. Very much appreciated. And from a libertarian, no less. So is Doge City a better name than Starbase City? No. Can Mars really be terraformed into another Earth-like planet? I believe that terraforming Mars would take more than 100 years. I believe the answer is sort of a yes, but I'm not sure. That's science beyond my knowledge. I know people have talked about it, and Elon has said it. I think that would be a very, very difficult thing to do, but it's possible. I think Elon just said you have to warm the planet up. No, so Aaron Bound says, talking about the pandemic, it affects different people differently. For many, it's just another common cold. For others, it's lethal. The people we're talking about are not, it's very dangerous to elderly people. I have a friend who's 40 years old who smokes cigarettes but is afraid to go outside. The cigarettes are dangerous to your health. COVID is not dangerous to a 40-year-old. Not anywhere close to cigarettes in danger. Brian Meinhardt, thank you very much for your support. I wake up to the voice in my head asking me if I'm living in a dystopia or simulation. LOL. Yeah, I mean, simulation is probably pushing it, but it's not necessarily, it's looking more and more like it. But just ask yourself that question. Look around and say, do I see signs of a dystopia around me? And I'll tell you what's really hard is, okay, suppose you conclude we are living in a dystopia. What is the nature of the dystopia? What's wrong? What should things be like if it wasn't a dystopia? Huge challenge. Hassan asks, has Dave Lee reached out to you for an interview? So I frequently get suggestions, and I see Dave Lee gets suggestions that he should interview me. Dave Lee has never I tag Dave Lee occasionally on Twitter. Dave Lee has never responded to me in any way on Twitter. I don't know if Dave Lee is ignoring me for a reason, just doesn't like me, doesn't notice me. I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to interview with Dave Lee. I like interviewing with anyone. I probably offended him at some point. I offend a lot of people, and that's what it is. Matt C. says, how close to developing nuclear fusion are we? We have already developed nuclear fusion. We haven't made it cost effective yet, and we never will. It's 10 years away, and it will always be 10 years away. Genomics is 5 years away. Genomics used to be 10 years away. It's now 5 years away, and will be 5 years away for the next 20 years. These opinions are not reliable. Eating fugu could be dangerous. I haven't tried eating fugu yet. I don't think you really see fugu in the United States. Not that I've noticed. Not any places I've been to. What do I think of Tesla trying to drive the autonomous competition out of business in the early stages of robo-taxis? They could undercut the regional competitors, then get more market share. There is no autonomous competition. There's no one to drive out of business. Tesla is trying to develop autonomous vehicles, and no one else is coming anywhere close to doing it in a cost-effective way. I don't think they're trying to drive anybody out of business. They're trying to make it work. Warming up Mars with huge space mirrors, nuking the poles, there's all kinds of possibilities. Warren, have you heard any updates about 4680 cells? I heard an update, and a not necessarily credible source claiming that they had achieved 5,000, a yield of 5,000 cells in one day, and that was a record for them. I don't know if I believe the source. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth. I'm just not saying I'm not sure. 2 70-year-olds running for president last year. I'm not sure that's a sign of the dystopia. COVID is an alien timeline. I don't think I'm too small for Dave Lee. That's not the problem. I'm not too small for Dave Lee. I got 50,000 followers. People think I'm the #1 Tesla bull. He could interview me if he wanted to. I don't know what Dave Lee thinks of me. All I can tell you is he has never replied to me on Twitter. He has never acknowledged my existence. I'm not offended. I think I rub people the wrong way, and I think at some point I rubbed him the wrong way once. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I made a video where I criticized him at one point about something he said. I think he, maybe it was his Robo-Taxi views or something. I think he's under optimistic about Tesla, and wrongly so, and I think I've criticized him about it before, but it was only once. But I'll say this. Let me just talk about this for a second. So I appreciate all of you. I have, I'm approaching 50,000 subscribers. I have a lot of dedicated people who watch this channel. Jim, Mike, Mark. A lot of you are regular viewers of this channel. Ken, I appreciate you. One of the things that happens when you have a following, when you do what I do, and I'm a very, very small celebrity, right? But even at my level, you get a lot of people who tell you how great you are, pat you on your back, agree with you. If you look at my videos, I get like 98% thumbs up and 2% thumbs down on most of my videos. So, for me personally, I get a lot of people who are critical of me as well. A lot of it's trolling, but there's some genuine criticism in there. And I enjoy the criticism. I like interacting with the critics. Maybe it's because I'm a lawyer and argumentative, whatever. Maybe it's just my personal nature, but I enjoy that conversation, that back and forth. I actually find it more interesting than people telling me, great job, Warren. I don't mind the great jobs. Please keep telling me that. Please keep giving me the thumbs up, liking the video, telling your friends, all that. But it's more interesting to talk with someone you disagree with than it is to talk to someone you agree with, because you already agree. There's not a lot to talk about. So I think that when you get to a certain level of fame and you have this constant stream of people telling you how great you are, it starts to get irritating to some people when somebody disagrees with you. And I think there's sort of a natural tendency to dislike someone who challenges you on something and argues with you about something, even though there's a genuine argument to be had there. That's an opinion. I don't know. I'm not saying that applies to Dave Lee or Stephen Mark Ryan, whoever it is. I think there are people who are in this community of YouTubers who I'm brash. I will criticize somebody if I think they're wrong. Like, so Ross Gerber on Twitter, I will criticize him. Ross engages in the argument. Gary Black, I'll criticize him. He hasn't blocked me. He doesn't really engage me in the argument that much, but at least he hasn't blocked me. There are other people who just really can't take that conversation. So Philip Messi says, Dave Lee goes super deep. Maybe he feels that you lack enough depth. Okay. Maybe he's right. I don't know. I would love to have Ross Gerber on, but I think Ross is too big for my channel. If anybody has good... I mean, I know Ross. I don't know that Ross is really a fit for the channel. He's more like a stock market guy, and I'm not really a stock market guy. I'm just a straight Tesla tech guy. I don't know how much Ross would have to say about Neuralink. I would love to have him on. I just don't know if we would go... I don't really like to get into the finer points of investing and, buying options and buy low, sell high, all that stuff. I just buy and hold. He is really good. I think he's great. I don't think it's about interviewing someone who's smarter than him. He just interviewed Doma. Doma's really smart. I don't know. I honestly, I genuinely think he probably just doesn't like me. And I don't care. That's the way it is. I'm sure Dave Lee is a great person. I like his channel. I watch his videos. I think he's great. I like him. Klaus, you are right about the arguing, but it is tough to argue if you agree in an opinion. Yes. And thank you for your support, Klaus. Have I considered PewDiePie? I don't know that PewDiePie is a good fit for my channel. I doubt he would want him on me. People are speculating on Dave Lee, and you just ask him. People have tweeted, Dave, you should interview Warren, and I have replied, I would love to, and he doesn't respond. I don't know what else you want me to do. He doesn't follow me. I'm not going to message him. Warren, have you seen the channel Tesla Economist? He's doing similar 10-year outlooks. I've seen the channel. I haven't watched it in depth. I didn't like... There was something about the approach I didn't like, and I don't remember what. Maybe I'm too Jewish. Maybe it's the Glock. Who knows? Have I asked Dave Lee to my show? No, I haven't asked Dave. Dave Lee doesn't respond. I will say something to Dave on Twitter. He'll say something, I'll reply. Somebody else will tag me and say, Dave, you should interview Warren, and I'll say, I'd love to. He has never replied. He's not interested. Maybe he's just not into me. What do I think of video games? Do you play? I played video games when I was younger. For my 40th birthday, I bought a PlayStation 3, and I bought a few games, and then I realized I didn't play them, and I stopped playing video games. Warren fan on the front. Yeah. I've thought about doing a Let's Go video, where I go like this, where there's a video, a t-shirt with me going, let's go. I have to get the right photo and put that on a shirt, but I guess I'm not that, what's the word for it? I'm not that narcissistic to put my face on a shirt. Or my name. Hassan, you message him and tell him I want to talk to him. If the guy has, I've interacted with the guy, I've replied to the guy on Twitter like 100 times and he's never replied to me. I think that's a message, Hassan. Oh, Heinz says, I said Dave Lee was pompous about needing Tesla stopping making cars for consumption only for robocars. I probably did say something like that. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I probably insulted him. He probably felt insulted and he got, oh, and you know, Dave doesn't like girls in bikinis. I don't know. Interview the Lucid. I'm pretty sure I would love to interview the Lucid CEO. There's no way in hell they're letting me interview Peter Rawlinson. No way. No way anyone from Lucid is going to be allowed to interview with me. No. When I went to the Lucid store and I was videoing, they would not speak while I had the video going. That may be a rule they have generally. It might not have just been me. I would love to interview Omar again. I'm not sure what I'm going to interview Omar about right now. Too Jewish. There was something that Dave Lee said. There was this concept. Maybe it was, you know, he was on with. I think he had Now You Know on his channel, and he was talking to them, and they were talking about Tesla would stop selling cars, and he was like, they won't stop selling cars because. And it was the way he said it. I think he did come off as pompous, and I think the Now You Know guys thought he was being a little nutty too. But there's a video where Dave Lee interviews I forget their names now. Zach and Jesse. I don't say Zach and Cody. Zach and Jesse from Now You Know. I thought they were really good in that interview, and I thought Dave was really frustrating, and I thought they were frustrated with him. So watch the video yourself, and you tell me. And I made a video where I probably picked on Dave about it. Do I watch drone footage of Gigafactory construction? I watch a little. I don't watch a lot. Be less insulted. That's a good T-shirt. Sure. You need an opponent. Dave is too nice. I do like. I don't know. I actually think conversation with Dave would be really good. I think he's really insightful. He often asks really good questions. I think his interviews. I watch his channel. I think he does really good interviews. He's just not into me. Right. It was the not about you. That's the whole point. I have a T-shirt. It's not about you. Everybody responds to the Tesla's going to stop selling cars and put everything in the Robo-Taxi network. Well, I want a car. Well, then buy a car now. This isn't about you. I'm sorry you don't like it. Jason DeBolt says, I had zero contact with Dave Lee before he reached out to me for an interview. He will likely ask you for an interview when you least expect it. You are an important member of the Tesla community. Thank you, Jason, and thank you for watching. Jason is awesome. If you don't know who Jason DeBolt is, follow him on Twitter. Jason is a very successful investor in Tesla. He has a great story. Sometime I should have Jason on the channel. Jason, you're on now. You're on the hook, Jason. I'm gonna invite you on the channel. We're gonna talk about your journey. Oh, that was it. I said, can you hear the privilege in Dave's voice about him wanting his own car and car seats? Yes. I'm sure I said that. Dave is into camping, could relate to your off-grid project. I would love to have Dave on my channel. I would love to talk to him on his channel. I think he's great. I'm sure I offended him, and I think people should have thicker skins. All right, I'm writing down a note. Jason DeBolt is willing to do an interview. Jason, it's going to be in a couple weeks. It's not yet. I got a busy week ahead. Jason is a must interview. If you're not following Jason DeBolt on Twitter, you should be. I did email Sandy Monroe and asked, actually, Sandy Monroe, I was in an email conversation that Sandy Monroe was not in the email. Somebody emailed me and someone from the Detroit Free Press about something. And we both replied, it's fairly straightforward replies. And then the guy replied to all and added Sandy Monroe to the conversation. And then Sandy replied to that. It was about Ford, something about Ford and like that he doesn't do any work for Ford anymore. And then I replied and said, hey, I'm really honored to get your email. I would love to have you on my channel. And he didn't reply. So I asked. I think Sandy Monroe would be great, but don't pick on Scotty Kilmer. I don't think you understand his points about Tesla and EVs. He's a mechanic and doesn't like that Tesla's not allowing people to fix their own cars. I don't think you've watched his videos. His videos are not about that Tesla doesn't let people fix their own cars. His videos are that Tesla cars stink. And it's nonsense. And his videos, like his thumbnails are very formulaic. Uses the same title styles over and over again. Same video styles. He's absolutely horrible. But I'm going to tear him apart. Where are we on time? Oh, we're over 2 hours. Wow. There was a slow moment there. I was going to end it. We picked up speed. Reading 1984 when I was 14 was disturbing. It scared me about the future. Watching The Matrix will do that too. Did you see The Matrix, Bill? How old were you when you saw The Matrix? That reminds me, I got to make my younger kid watch The Matrix. I made the older one watch it. Let's see. All right, we're 2.5 hours in. I actually have a phone call at 4 o'clock, which is a little more than half an hour from now. Isn't 1984 more a critique of the world the Nazis were trying to create? Wasn't Big Brother supposed to be a bargain bin Hitler figure? I mean, there was a reason it was set and bombed out Britain. Interesting. I don't know the answer to that. I thought it was totalitarianism of one form or another, and I thought he was anti-communist, but it could have been about Hitler. Bill, have you read, that's another good book. It's a hard read, but Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is a really good read. There's just this really slow point in the middle that you got to slog through. It's also like a bit of philosophy in the middle, and it's just like a, I don't know, 100-page monologue or something. But the book as a whole is a great story. Okay, so I have a phone call I have to do in a half hour, so I am going to wrap this up. I'm going to be speaking with, if you guys know him, Jason knows him, Sawyer Merritt and I are going to be speaking with someone else. So, no, Dave is great. Don't pick on Dave Lee. He's a good guy. He just doesn't like me, probably. Okay, it's fine. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please check out the t-shirts below, elonbits.com. Buy my book, Fair DUI. First time I promoted this on my channel, but Fair DUI, the book, it is like $3 on Kindle. And it's like 4.5, 4.8 stars, something like that. Really, I think it's a really interesting read if you're a driver and you're worried about traffic stops. Very good read. Support the channel on Patreon, link below. Check out the other stuff in the description. Comment, share this video, subscribe. Check out my other videos. There will be, if you're watching later, there will be videos on the screen. And thank you so much for watching. And thanks to Mark and Carl and Jim and channel members and Patreon members for your